Good morning. Good morning.
Welcome to For the Record,
Yes,
episode 4.
absolutely. 4 down and many more to go. Hopefully, right?
Yay! Absolutely. We've got some extra special stuff today.
I
Extra
was going to say
special.
we've got one I think is going to be very interesting. I know I'm looking forward to hearing from you and a very special guest we have. I understand.
Yep. Someone who I think has probably got the most information. Well, he's got an exorbitant amount of knowledge on the case. All right, so we are doing the Zachariah Anderson murder trial today. It's controversial. It is very black and white. It seems that the opinion of the public is either innocent or guilty. There is no in between.
I've heard that this is the Ty Tucker of the Midwest. Is that correct?
Or the Karen Reid, maybe.
Or the Karen Reid.
Yeah. There is so many issues with the trial. The defense attorneys, the state, the judge, the whole lot. It's a bit of a shit show, but we're going to try and Nick and I are going to try and explain the case to Steve as a blank canvas, so we can get an unbiased opinion from him, basically based on what was presented to the jury. So we've invited Nick Starrow to come join us on the panel today. Given his knowledge and experience with the case, he's an avid pro Zachariah Anderson innocence fan, and has raised quite a lot of fundraising money for his appeal.
I was going to say not just a fan, correct? He's actually in contact with Zach and
financially,
Okay.
Contributed himself. He's put in a lot of time and effort to the case, and he is well renowned in the community, well respected as well. Now, he's a self-proclaimed legal snark and the creator of the infamous Wheel of Regret. All right, let's play that little intro. I know you know who it is. Once you see this. And we have, that's not the right one. That's all right. We can play it.
Oh, is it this one?
Yep. double the advertisement, Nick. You should see our outro from last week. Oh God. All right. So without further ado, let's welcome him to the stage, shall we? Welcome.
Welcome, Nick. Welcome.
All the way from Sweden. Freezing Sweden.
Hey-ho, folks. Hey-ho, folks.
Hey, he made it. He made it.
I made it.
Oh,
yes.
Comments. Whoops, we're 83 in. All right. I'll do the comments. If you would like to do a quick intro for everyone, that'd be awesome. And I'll try and bring up some chat. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There were some technical difficulties.
There was, yes.
There are 3 different time zones here, folks. 3 different time zones. It's 9 a.m. there, well, 9:20, 3:20 p.m. and
1:20 a.m.
Oh. So it's already
I've
tomorrow.
got the excuse.
It's already tomorrow over there.
It is, yes. I said the other day I got 2 birthdays. I got one in my time zone and one in Eastern Standard Time. All right. So, just give us a little bit of your background information, Nick, if that's all right.
Okay. Hello, folks. For you who don't know, I have been doing labor law for over 30 years over here in Sweden. So I do have a law degree and do have the experience of evidence evaluation, evaluating witnesses, depositions, all the things, just not in a criminal setting, in labor law setting. So that is my background. And about, well, almost 2 years ago, after watching everybody else doing their thing on YouTube, I decided, well, if they can,
That's pretty much what happened to me.
So can I.
Yeah.
And I started, and yeah.
So that was 2 years ago, did you say?
I started 2 years ago.
Wow.
December 28th.
You've done well.
I've been doing okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm having the time of my life
It's
doing
good,
this
isn't it?
because I can do and say things on stream that I would never be able to do in my professional setting. It's so liberating.
So you're still practicing?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah. And
Cool.
I, at one point in time, I'm going to wind down a bit, but I don't think I will ever stop doing it because it's like being on the internet. There's something wrong and I need to correct it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm.
Cool. All right. So you've mainly been focused on recently the young thug trial. This is for the last 300 or so videos. And you've focused on Jodi Arias quite a bit as well, I believe. And Zachariah Anderson. So you were telling me earlier. Yep.
Yeah, the Zachariah Anderson, I didn't cover it live on my channel, but I was a guest on everybody else's channels when this happened. And I've been watching that trial on a few occasions, going through it. But mainly my focus has been, okay, what is not in the trial that should have been in the trial? And what was in the trial that should not have been in the trial? To make an understanding of how the trial went the way it went, and how trying to make sense into how they reached that conclusion. And most of it, I more or less believe, is what was in that shouldn't have been and what wasn't in that should have been.
Yeah, because I didn't know anything about this trial until about 10 days ago when I bit off more than I can chew, basically. Didn't look at how many days the trial ran for, and decided that this would be a good one to cover in the podcast, and then counted the days. So I haven't slept a lot. But, so it's fresh in my mind.
Yeah, my experience with the trial is very limited. I've known about the case. I actually did not watch much of it when it was on. It was not one, and I kind of tuned in a little bit, and then I thought it was a pretty cut and dry case. So I kind of put my attention elsewhere. I thought, okay, this just sounds like they got this guy dead to rights. And then I heard there was a guilty verdict, and then I've had people come in throughout since I started my channel, coming in saying, you got to look into this case. You got to look into this case. There's something wrong here. And I've always kind of said, well, that'll be one I will, because I was kind of deeply looking at the Ty Tucker case. So it was kind of my real deep dive case I've been focusing on. So
what would be interesting, we can analyze it today, and then you can use that to go into further explanation down the track, because I believe that Nick's got some updated information from since the trial ran as well. So that'll be really interesting to hear.
Absolutely.
So I will just say, I know that it is a controversial trial, but I know that we're all capable of being respectful and nice. Basically, in the chat, we're entitled to our own opinions, and yeah, if we can just keep it classy, that'd be great. All right, housekeeping tick. So, the charges, I've got them on a document somewhere.
Yeah, two
Hidden,
counts of stalking, one count of murder, and one count
one
of
hiding the body.
Yeah.
Hide
Yep.
the body. Gotcha.
Yep. So stalking of his. They weren't actually married, were they, or were they?
No, never married.
No. Okay. So, how do you know? Do you remember how long they were together? Was it
I believe in the region of 15 years.
because they had
They had one
the
12-year-old
11-year-old
at the time, one 12-year-old daughter, and two twin boys at
at 4 or
9.
something, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yep.
Quite young at the
And
time.
was there a history of domestic abuse or anything like that, or
Not that I'm aware of.
No,
But they were going through a custody battle.
no charges that I know of.
No,
no police reports that they were at the house or anything of that nature? Or
not that I know. Not that I've heard. No.
Gotcha.
So
A year before, there was an argument when police was called, but nothing happened of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And does Nick, or not Nick? Sorry, does Zachariah have any? Does Zach have any history of violence before this, as far as being a violent individual? Or
He has before this. He has no
nothing.
violent
no
crimes.
criminal
on him.
record.
No criminal
Well,
record.
he has a criminal record, but nothing
Nothing of violent nature.
Nothing
Gotcha.
of violent nature.
Gotcha. And nothing related to like domestic violence or either or
No.
anything like that. Gotcha.
All right. And he was he like in demolition, and was it demolition or
demolition restoration
that's right.
business, and so he was a contractor who went in when they needed something demolished, like for getting insulations out and removing bathrooms and floorings. Yeah, so pure demolition. And then also he bought that current property of his in order to restore it to resell it later on. So the house he was living in was in what do you call it? Being ripped out in order to build up again.
I got you. So they were trying to renovate it, basically. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. And they were doing he was doing as the house flipping situation where he was completely
he was
redoing
trying to get
it
into that business. Yes.
Gotcha. I gotcha.
Sadie and Zach did not live together at the time of this, and they hadn't lived together for some time. I don't know the exact amount of time. He has also been working out of state on occasion.
I think it was at least 2 months from memory. At least they've been split up for 2 months.
Yeah.
One quick second, guys. I'll be right back.
Yep. So the police originally picked him up on the stalking, didn't they?
Yes.
And interviewed him on the stalking charges.
Yes.
But that was after they discovered, Sadie discovered the scene. Is that right?
Yes. This was after the scene, and he was picked up after he called the cops regarding 2 people who came onto his property.
Oh.
The 2 male witnesses in the trial, Michael and the other one.
Were they defense witnesses or state?
State witnesses who came to his property and our friend is missing. We think you had something to do with it. And so he called the cops on them, and then the cops came. And
was that on the 19th?
Yeah. And so the cops then picked up Zach for the stalking. And he was then arrested and put on a $40,000 or $50,000 bond. And
Was he able to raise that, or
the family, well, they had the money, but they were scared that if they put the bond up on that, they would just rearrest him for something else to drain his abilities to defend himself.
that sounds familiar?
Yeah, we
Have you followed the Ty Tucker case,
I
the
did
Treehouse
not.
murder?
I did not. I did
No?
not. I know
Well,
about it, but I don't know enough.
you will be very interested to see the plea deal that he was able to achieve.
Yeah, I heard he got some time served on a lesser charge.
Yep, they dropped 4 felonies.
Mm.
They kept the robbery with a mask, and no probation, no supervised release, no fine, waived all of his fees, and time served for that felony of 910 days.
Okay, that's
If that
quite...
doesn't say, mate, you're innocent,
Yeah,
I don't know what will.
Yeah, we have nothing, but we will still keep you in there
Yep.
another few months unless you.
He didn't even have to
deal.
snitch.
Yeah,
he was released that night.
Mm.
So there you go.
Yeah.
All right, so
yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you over the we've actually got the exclusive. Steve's got contacts down there, and we actually got footage of the last hearing when he was released, and a copy of the. Well, he pled no contest to the robbery charge, so it wasn't even like he.
Yeah, the 2 people who came onto Zach's property was Campbell and Hendrickson. I see in the chat. Thank you. I'm bad with names.
I am so far behind in the chat. It's gone so fast. I can't even see it.
Right. Ashley G3. Hey, thank you.
Oh,
thank you.
Yeah, so Udahef has watched this.
Yeah.
He watched it live and watched it 3 times since.
Yeah, and I mean,
hello all. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And in the grand scheme of things, why Zach, according to the state, 2 days after he allegedly, what he's now convicted of, 2 days after he killed the guy, he called the cops to his home. That doesn't make sense, does it? Why would he call cops to his home? Because of these 2 guys walking onto his trespassing on his property, being very, very aggressive and threatening towards him. And the state turned that around and said, he lied about his name. Well, 2 guys may or may not have been armed at the time. We are looking for Zach. Oh,
really?
He's not here. And they turned that around.
That was his lie about his name.
Yeah, that was the lie about his name, because he lied to those 2 guys about who he was.
And then the cops turned up because he rang 911 about 2 guys on his property, and they arrested him for stalking.
Yeah, for the killing the 2 days before, or for the stalking at first.
And so it was Sadie that had reported that.
Yeah,
that was the narrative that she gave to the police when she found the scene. Is that correct?
Yeah, the narrative, and she claimed that her daughter had information. Then she got back to the cops. Allowed Sadie, who was allegedly scared for her life, to go alone to get her daughter. So yeah,
she finds the crime scene, and then the cops let her go unattended to go and pick up her daughter.
So she's traveling from a crime scene that she believes to be a crime scene.
Oh, it is, yeah.
And she's okay, even though she's allegedly afraid that he could be out there looking for her, doing her next. And then she goes, gets her daughter, and comes back without any police escort.
She's walked through the crime scene, checking to see where he was, and they let her just go.
Well, that depends if you, in the deposition she was in the crime scene looking at it. When it came to testifying in court, she never went inside. So that we have this interesting change in testimony.
Yeah.
That kind of developed over time to be more and more incriminating towards Zach.
Yeah. All right. Well, would you like me to play the state's explanation of or description of said crime scene so that you got an idea?
Yeah.
Yep. And then we'll show you the actual crime scene.
Okay.
All right. Add to stage. Have I got it boosted? Hang on.
Oh.
Not that you need to boost his voice, Christ.
His building, and she calls him and texts him multiple times over the next half hour. Where are you? She'd never been here before. Are you coming out? You know, that kind of stuff.
Hang on. I've got him sped up, sorry. Oh. Okay. Come on.
Never get an answer. So sometime after 9:27 p.m., the state's going to suggest to you all that blood results, and Rosalío Gutiérrez is no more, to those who know him. They go through family and friends, and no one has heard from him since that.
I missed it.
Abandoned us and left us down with some Down syndrome Mexican version after this big moment where Sadie met his kids. And she gets to his home in Kenosha.
There we go.
And she finds that the sliding door is open. You'll see in the pictures, Rosalío Gutiérrez has that apartment in an apartment complex that's the bottom floor, and his slider and his screen face right onto the road. So the sliding door is open, the screen is closed, and she looks in, and boy, does she see a lot of blood. And she calls 911. And at the moment she calls 911 and law enforcement gets there, there will be a number of things that law enforcement focus on in their investigation. And I'd ask you to think about these areas of focus as you think about the evidence as it comes in this case. One area of focus is, when was Rosalío Gutiérrez last alive to those people who know him? The second area of investigation is, who has the motive and who has any pattern of conduct where they would be a person we should look to as a person who might have finished that pattern, completed that pattern, or acted on their motive and ended Rosalío Gutiérrez's life.
That
then
was
the
an
third
interesting rewrite of what actually happened, because they had no idea until Sadie told them about, well, I think my ex might have something to do with it. So this was not something they thought about. It was nothing the investigators came to a conclusion of by themselves. They got, well, right when they were at the crime scene, there was Sadie saying, I think my ex had something to do with it. And from that moment in time, that was the only lead they went for. The only theory they had.
So they never investigated anybody else?
Never investigated anybody else.
Do you want me to go further with this one?
Yeah, sure. I want to hear about the bloody crime scene and then show the actual crime scene.
Third, of course, area of investigation was, where is the body of Rosalío Gutiérrez? And I'm not going to belabor that in this opening. You'll hear about very substantial efforts in many jurisdictions involving many agencies to look for the body of Rosalío Gutiérrez, which is never found.
Rose between the thorns.
So, on May 19th, okay, so this is 2 days after Rosalío has last been heard from, at 11:07 a.m., the Kenosha Police Department is at Rosalío's address. And they find through their investigation before too long that the last person in touch with him appears to be a woman whose last name is Macias, who received a text from him at 9:27 p.m. on the 17th, okay? And then she texted him back because she arrived at a building she thought was his. Turns out she was at the wrong building. But she thought she was in his building.
Oh, this is so unnerving. This was what caused the first mistrial. Yes, this was the retrial of Zachariah Anderson, because the prosecution failed to tell the defense, hey, we went there with this witness. And they have no recordings of this happening. They have no reports of this happening. All we have to go by is Gravely's saying, yeah, we went there with her, and then we discovered she was at the wrong address. Here's the thing, folks. She wasn't using the same GPS to get there. And we don't actually know, since we don't know what was said between them.
So what? Sadie had 2 phones.
Not Sadie, this witness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this witness, since
The other chick.
since the crime, have changed phones. So it was not the same GPS. We don't know if she actually was at the wrong address. She claimed in her deposition she was in front of Rosalio's address.
So
And
they
then-
didn't do a phone extraction on her phone.
Nope. And so what? This is so uncanny, because when this was revealed with all of that, because there's a clear cut in between before this meeting with the prosecutor Gravely and after. The change in her testimony is so completely different
From a police interview.
from the police interview to the testimony in court.
Wow. Wow.
And she is now everybody is nervous on the stand, but some people are nervous for different reasons. I'm not a body language guy. I barely believe in it. But I have, after 30 years in labor law, I have a BS meter implanted in my spine.
Yeah.
And it went tingling, and I'm not saying she was lying, but my BS meter went off. Yeah.
When she was under direct, I thought she was calm and collected, but she buckled under cross.
Now, Nick, what type of attorney was the attorney? Like, was it appointed counsel, or did he hire counsel who represented his interest at trial?
He was. This was an appointed counsel.
Okay, so we didn't have necessarily the strongest of legal counsel sitting next to him.
Under the circumstances, the team did as good as they could, but they had a lot of things against them because evidence was brought in that shouldn't have. Like, for instance, the marijuana plants in his house. Completely unnecessary, had nothing to do with the crime.
Yeah. Well, what was the argument for relevancy on the state's behalf that the marijuana plants should come in?
Credibility, maybe?
Were they saying he was under the influence? I mean, how does that tie into?
No, I believe it's just to show that, he grows marijuana in his home. That means he's a bad guy.
Yep.
Well, yeah, right. Okay. So, but it had obviously it has nothing to do with anything to do with why he might have done this or anything besides
there is actually no factual evidence.
They brought it in to explain. The claim was they needed to bring it in because to show that his daughter had been in the house and seen all the things that she had seen in it.
I see. So you're saying that that part of her statement was she said he had those things in the house, and that was going to bolster her credibility to say that she had been there. So then, okay, so that was how they got it in. That was the exception that they brought it in. Because I was going to say you can't normally bring in things that are
and because
just for the
with
purpose
the
that
basement
aren't related.
It was with the basement testimony, what she claimed she saw in the basement. Also things that changed from. Because every interview she had with prosecutor Gravely was unrecorded, and every time, they had 4 or 5 unrecorded meetings with prosecutor Gravely, with the daughter, and every time she changed the story slightly.
And what do you believe the interest was in Prosecutor Gravely's part in wanting to convict him? Do you think it's because he just felt like he's guilty, but we need to bolster this, or is there some other reason that he felt the need to pursue an innocent man if the evidence wasn't?
I believe it has to do with what happened a couple of years prior. They had a really, really public trial, the Rittenhouse trial, and they lost. The prosecution lost. Shamefully, they lost. So they were in desperate need of a high-profile case and a conviction.
Okay.
And they chose this one. That's my theory.
So it was the same judge and the same prosecutor on the same on that case.
So you're saying
Gravely? It was Gravely is the boss of the prosecutor who lost the Rittenhouse case.
Gotcha. So you're saying he just didn't want to be embarrassed in this case. So this is a case that originally he may have thought had merit, and then as the public situation occurs with Rittenhouse and he loses, and he isn't willing to go public and say we messed another case up. We got the wrong guy. So instead, he says we got to beat the case and move forward, which obviously they have so far.
Yeah.
So that is my theory, and I'm sticking to it.
You do that, sir.
In touch with him appears to be a woman whose last name is Macias, who received a text from him at 9:27 p.m. on the 17th. Okay, and then she texted him back because she arrived at a building she thought was his. Next half hour, where are 9:27 p.m. No more, to those who know him. They go through family and friends, and no one has heard from him since that 9:27 p.m. time on May 17th through any other method of communication. And so law enforcement focuses on Sadie Beecham. Remember, she called 911. She's still at the scene. She is distraught. Any other, and no one goes 9:27 p.m.
Where's the
state's going to suggest to you all that blood results, and Rosalio Gutierrez is no more. To those
Did I miss it?
You know, that kind of. She calls him at a building she thought was his. Turns out she was at the wrong building, but she thought she was in his building, and she.
I can't adjust it.
I've boosted you on the I can boost you some more.
I was going to say you're showing at max, Nick, on my end. Yeah.
Yeah, I've boosted the actual stream, so I can hear you really well now. But
hold on, I will try to change microphone here.
I mean, I was checking the stream out on my phone, and it sounded good on my end on my phone as far as Nick talking. He was coming through great, so I don't know.
Okay, I changed the microphone.
Oh, yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Where is the? I had it queued. What's that?
Can the chat help out? Well, timestamp on the law and crime regarding when Gravely said there were blood everywhere in his opening statement.
What's that ringing? Okay, there we go.
Where you are first in the entrance.
There we go.
There is a small stick of processed wood, like a baseball bat or some other hard object. It's not a log. It's not a piece of cut timber.
A baseball bat that is missing from Rosalio's apartment. So how did Zach had it outside the door?
Can anyone else hear that ringing?
I can hear it. I don't know.
Yeah, I can hear it too. That's what I'm trying to figure out myself. Yeah, I don't know.
Why is there a phone beside Nick's push to talk?
Well, yeah,
Right.
you can if he goes off like if he were to go backstage, we could talk to him
Okay.
through that and it won't broadcast out to everybody else. So that's what that's for.
Sounds like an alarm.
Yeah, no, yeah, I don't have any alarms going off.
No,
No.
I have nothing here.
I don't know if it's coming through the stream or not, but I don't know.
Now I've got it paused.
I just muted myself and it continued.
Let me mute myself here.
I can still hear it.
Okay. Yeah, then it's not me.
All right.
I don't know. There's got to be something maybe going on.
Hey, now it stopped.
Now it stopped. Yep, it stopped. So it's got to be on. Maybe it's got
Is
to be
it back
on.
again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Once you came back.
Oh,
Yep.
fuck.
Oh, there it is.
Who sets an alarm for 5 to 2 in the morning? Sorry, the screen had gone black and it didn't show. Sorry.
Wood ends up having blood on it, which is found to be the blood of Rosalio Gutierrez, and hair on it as well, which is also found to be Rosalio Gutierrez. There is significant blood on the curtains, which are on the entire other end of the apartment from where that entrance to the hallway comes. There is blood on the fan. There's blood on the ceiling in multiple rooms of this apartment. There is pooled and seeped blood into the carpet in the living room.
Did anyone ever work out how much or estimate how much?
Not in trial. It was no testimony in trial about the estimated amount of blood in that apartment.
But there was outside a trial? Is that what you're saying or not?
No.
No?
No, there's no
one
testimony
ever-
or evidence on exactly how
We
much
only have
blood.
5 liters, so
Yeah, I mean,
Room on the floor area.
in a 270-pound, 6'2" man, there's a lot of blood. And I've seen crime scenes where similar, and yeah, let's just listen to him and then watch the crime scene photos.
all right.
Area, and seeped blood, a significant quantity of seeped blood on the couch that is the primary couch in that living room. And in the middle of the area by the couch, there is a missing area where there's blood surrounding it, but then there's a rectangled off area that has no blood whatsoever. It's pristine, which certainly suggests to anybody who looks at it that an area rug, a medium sort of size area rug, was there when significant bleeding happened and is now missing from that apartment. There are little splinters of wood on the couch that are also there, interspersed in the blood and interspersed in hair that is located, strands of hair located on that couch as well. Law enforcement tests several locations at various places. You'll hear where they tested. Each time they tested and they found that it was blood, each of those times the blood came from one individual, and that was Rosalio Gutierrez. You will hear that the blood is sprayed, meaning there was impact in multiple locations and multiple different times based on where the blood is located and how the blood presents or looks when law enforcement is present. Remember, present 2 days, about a day and a half after the event.
Yeah, here's an interesting
Yeah,
fact. They went there 2 days after. The blood on the floor was still wet. 2 days later.
not moist.
Was it the blood?
But wet, because we will see it when we come to the crime scene
It was
photos.
wet.
Because so 2 days later,
And what
it was still wet.
And I'm assuming obviously inside the apartment, it was not some sort of there was no reason that should have been the case. It wasn't in any type of a way that would have.
The door was open too, wasn't it? The sliding door.
The sliding door was closed, but it's been in. Of what I can remember, Sadie had to open the sliding door to look in.
Gotcha.
So the blood that was wet, was that the pooled blood on the carpet, or was it
the pooled blood on the carpet was still wet?
That doesn't surprise me, depending on how much was there.
Yeah, but we will see on the crime scene photos.
Yeah.
Area rug is completely missing. You'll hear that you might hear some testimony about something called arterial spray, where there's a finer, misty place there too. So some of what you might hear is blunt force trauma, hard objects hitting a bleeding surface. Some areas that you might hear about are more likely, or at least
they are saying in the chat
areas where
glass
maybe a
open,
knife
screen closed. So so which means some kind of breeze in. Okay.
Yeah, I thought the glass sliding door was open, but the front door under the stairs where the mailboxes was locked. But that glass sliding door was right out the front of the grassed area next to the main entrance, wasn't it? So anyone could have gone in there.
And some sharp object penetrated someone as.
So you're saying the glass sliding door was open? It would have been open for how long at that point?
Well, according to the state, the entire 2 days.
2 days.
Oh wow. Okay, so then there's really the crime scene almost was potentially contaminated from the standpoint of anybody. We don't know who could have walked in or out of there. We don't know what could have.
There was footprints in some of the.
In some of the.
But they thought that was the police doing that, or law enforcement.
But of course, we don't know. So okay.
No,
they didn't test his shoes.
They didn't test his shoes. They didn't test his shoe size against to my recollection. They didn't test. Okay, there are footprints here. We think it's from cops, so we won't do anything.
Yeah.
So no measurements or nothing.
Inside of the glove that was left in the hallway, didn't test that.
They never tested the glove. They never They did. To my recollection, they didn't check for fingerprints even on the obvious places like the door handle, the beer bottles, the water bottles, the light switches, the door handles inside the apartment, the door on the screen door, the glass door. None.
And the cards in the freezer, they didn't test them either.
They tested something on either the phone or the cards, they found unknown male DNA. That wasn't Zach's. It wasn't Rosalio. It wasn't one of Rosalio's kids. Unknown male DNA on the crime scene. Now,
and they found none of Zach's, correct? Zach's DNA was not found anywhere.
Nothing.
No DNA, no fingerprints. His van, who they allege is... when we say van, it is one of these family vans where he just took out the back 3 seats and used. And not on any not on any speed cameras, not on any traffic cameras, not on any businesses.
Evidence whatsoever.
No, so they cannot play. No witnesses places him there. There's no cameras that sees him driving back and forth.
And were there cameras there? Like, did they confirm that there are cameras that should
It's an
have picked
hour's
him up?
drive
Or,
from his
Yeah.
place.
or was it a failure to collect those cameras? Is that
I believe both.
Okay.
Both a failure to collect and the ones they did collect never showed him, never showed his van. So
And
it's a combination
gotcha.
of both.
Gotcha. Yep.
And it's an hour's drive. And the timeline of this is everything in that apartment happened in between 9 and 14 minutes.
So what was the big piece of evidence, Nick, that you think the jury relied on in this case to say, okay,
in the back of
We're
Zach's
there for-
van,
Mhm.
they found a pin-sized spot of trace of what they believe is blood, and on that spot was some transfer DNA.
Okay.
And that
But they couldn't determine if it was blood or not.
They couldn't determine because they could only test for either blood or DNA. It was a brownish red spot.
Okay.
Which the state's DNA expert testified to, claimed it was a match to Rosario. But she didn't specify a match to what degree. But I don't know how many trials you have watched, because when a DNA, they're talking about 1 in a trillion, 1 in 50 million. None of that.
What was the testing method they used? Was it a
She didn't-
RFLP test or a PCR test, or was it a?
She didn't
or
say.
Was it just a consistent with? It wasn't able. I guess it was so minute she couldn't do a further DNA test. Is that the problem?
Yeah, and also since they don't have the body, they didn't have the actual full profile of Rosario.
Oh, so they weren't able to go in and get a hairbrush or a toothbrush or anything to get his profile off of.
Now, since there's no body, there's no conclusivity regarding is this hair really from Rosario, or is it from one of his kids, or from his uncle, or from his father?
Gotcha.
I'm about to sneeze here. Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine.
I'm trying to hold it back.
The expert testimony basically said that it came down to her opinion.
Yeah.
Right. Well. Just so that is DNA testimony is opinion testimony. I don't know if that's actually the instruction. And one of the ways of attacking DNA testimony is because you've got to follow that. And this is, I don't know in this case if it's there, but DNA. It's like in the OJ case. Everybody says there's all this blood evidence, but what they didn't understand is the issues with that case was, and I was saying this to Jody the other day. I said, if you walked into a room and there's blood covered all over, the DNA, the crime scene analyst isn't going to go collect samples from every single one. You've got to actually go to an area and you're going to take a piece here, a piece here, a piece here. So if somebody's DNA is here and they don't have a reason to know it is, it could be missed. But at the same time, once you collect the DNA, it's got to be collected. It's got to be preserved. You've got to know that it's been handled. You've got to know, like in the OJ case, one of the things that people didn't know happened is Colin Yamauchi spilled OJ Simpson's vial of blood when he was handling the glove and 2 of the bindles. And that was one of the ideas, was they used what's called PCR testing, which was developed by Dr. Kerry Mullis. And he testified in the case. It's why the defense brought him in, that's why I was asking about if it was if they were using PCR testing, because that's going to amplify the DNA. That's pretty much what it does. And PCR testing was used during the pandemic for the testing.
But she couldn't even determine if it was touch, like if it's skin cells or blood.
Well, that's one of the factors. Is it can be subject to PCR testing is something that's controversial because of the fact that it's so. Basically, the nature of it really can be subject to finding other things that might not actually be there, or it could have been, in this case, because of that sample was spilled. It could very well have been Colin Yamauchi thinks he cleaned his glove. He didn't change his gloves, so he's touching this stuff, and it could pick that up. So in this case with Zach, if it's one piece or one small, minute amount, there's a lot of pieces there's a lot of places that's got to travel. Now, whether or not his public defender lawyers would have known how to attack that or been in a position to attack it, I don't know. I don't know what they put up, or if they just decided to argue that, you know what, if that's all they have, that's the opinion of the DNA expert. But how did his defense team approach that?
I don't really recall a great deal of
Well,
cross-examination on that.
they did try to cross-examine her on this. Well, what method did you use? And she was very evasive in cross-examination, because the presentation was gravely asked her, "Can you with what's the
reasonable?
Can you, with a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, say that this is a match to Rosalio?" On which she answered yes. And that was the entirety of her DNA match.
And she's saying it was a match, not consistent.
No, she only said match.
She said match.
And it was only 2 alleles or something like that.
And she wouldn't say a degree of certainty.
No.
Just, I mean,
to a degree of medical scientific certainty, but not which degree of scientific certainty.
And did they have an admissibility hearing on this, as far as the defense arguing and being able to say? I mean, that's a question of whether or not that should have even been admissible.
I believe they had, and the judge let it in.
And the judge let it in. So essentially, again, because that's what my dad used to say. He said, and I'm not sure if you know my background, Nick, but my dad was a pretty well-renowned criminal defense attorney, and he actually dealt with when he first came in. So I'm quite familiar with DNA, because he was actually consulted with the OJ defense, because my dad had a case that was one of the first DNA cases around early on, and he had to attack it. He won the case, and this was very early on when DNA was first getting brought into criminal cases. So there's a lot of, as my dad used to say, you win a criminal case in the pretrial with what you attack. So the question is, did his attorneys attack this? Did they challenge this? Did they bring it in? You've got to bring in experts to come to the judge and educate the judge and find, because at the same point, it's opinion. So it's like, you can't come in, and I don't understand how this would have even made it in if this expert doesn't even put an amount of certainty on it. And on top of that, there should have been an instruction from the judge that this is opinion expert, which there always is with DNA. That this is
she was the lab technician.
Okay.
So she was there to present the result of of her. And I do have a letter from Tiffany Roy. Tiffany Roy is one of the leading forensic people in the United States, and she wrote a formal complaint regarding this testimony from the DNA, about the DNA testimony.
The DNA. Right.
Yeah.
About that it was misused, basically, or misrepresented in court for how it was presented.
And she...
There wasn't enough for the defense to actually test anymore, was there? It was only
they did. Oh, that is one order of contention, because it was destroyed during the process of testing. So they can't.
That's an actual. Wow.
Yes, and they didn't record it.
Wow.
The testing, which is in the Wisconsin rules of evidence. If a testing destroys the sample, you have to have some safeguards in place, including you need to record what you're doing.
Gotcha.
And there's zero. And it still was allowed.
So is that, well, now let me ask you this, Nick. Is that a contention as part of the appeal? Because obviously if the jury relied heavily on that, and the appellate court would look at this and say, well, that should never have been admitted in the first place. Because it sounds like, it's in a sense, it's a due process right to confront issue, because the defense has every right to have an expert come in. And in a lot of cases, sometimes that's a basis that the DNA can't even come in if there's not enough of a sample for the defense to bring their expert in. Or at least at a minimum, there's an instruction on it that says how the jury should, the fact that this happened. Sounds like the judge might have been a little biased in this case. Is that correct?
Well, the judge is a completely separate business in this, because since Rosalio and his mother have worked in the court system, a lot of judges couldn't handle this case. And so this judge was more or less brought out of retirement. Otherwise, they would have had to move the trial to a new venue. So, and then it was delayed because he had a head in. He fell and hit his head quite severely. So they had to wait for the judge. So they had to wait until he was healthy enough to proceed this. And they never waived their speedy trial thing. So that is also a point of... And now Natalie Wisco is hired for the appeal. They are still preparing the appeal. They filed all the notices needed. They got the transcript. And the transcript from this 17-day trial cost them $15,000.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
Just for the transcript.
So Nick, did they raise the speedy trial issue pre-trial? I mean, they had to have, right? Is it his defense did not just ignore it, right? They raised it, and the judge. What was the judge's basis for saying it didn't matter? I mean, obviously, it does. Even if the judge hits his head, that doesn't stop him from his right to get a speedy trial and have it done in a certain time. The state's got to.
That part I'm not entirely sure about, but I do know it has been brought up, and
I mean that could be an issue that maybe the higher courts would take up on, or it could even go to the United States Supreme Court on an issue like that, because there's
so many dodgy things that have gone on in this trial.
From the and the amount of time in jail to the speedy trial to evidence, they were denied a third-party culprit defense.
Okay.
And
who was the third party they believed? I guess that's a question that I have in my mind. Who were they alleging, since they had it? Who was the third party that they were alleging?
That was one of the witnesses in this trial, Mr. Campbell. Because Mr. Campbell was found about a day or two, I think the day after this event took place. According to testimony, he was with a rolled up rug in his pickup truck, and a friend of his asked, "Oh, can I have it? I need it for my patio for the dogs." "No, it's too dirty. It's too dirty."
Really?
Yeah.
And was his DNA ever compared to the mysterious male DNA?
No.
So is that something?
No, because he told this guy no, and then he drove out of state.
Oh, wow.
To a landfill to deposit it.
And they never found this rug then. Wow.
Never investigated.
And what was his relationship to Rosario? Or
he was a workmate and a friend of sorts.
Okay.
With an interesting criminal past, who, according to depositions, they owed each other money all the time.
I got you.
And apparently at this point in time, he was owed, the prosecution claimed, he was only owed $50. I've heard other statements regarding it was thousands, because allegedly, I have to add that part, allegedly, Rosalio hadn't paid him for a number of jobs as a contractor. Coincidentally, in the demolition business.
So this sounds like this is a situation where the defense, or not the defense, the police come on the scene. They get tunnel vision because they're introduced by Sadie this idea that her ex-husband is a stalker, which then of course police are always going to be very much towards the ex-husband. Oh, if he's or some husband or some scenario, so they go that direction, and then they basically screw up everything screw up the case in the sense of letting missing evidence over here. So instead of having to say, "My God, we've totally screwed this thing up," and let the real killer potentially get rid of evidence, and now it's all done.
Oh
So they go
wait,
after the
oh wait,
low-hanging
there's
fruit.
oh wait, there's more.
Oh wow.
Outside, there is a dumpster. You know, it's an apartment complex. There's dumpsters. That dumpster closest to Rosalio's apartment was emptied on the Sunday or Monday. They went to the landfill. They had the rough spot sealed off, where they believed that dumpster might have been emptied.
Right.
That is the exact moment when police were called because they were going to arrest Zachariah. So everybody left that landfill and never checked if there was any evidence.
So the landfill was never actually searched. Wow.
No, they only pinpointed off, but never searched.
Now, has anyone from Zachariah's new team gone out? Because I'm sure there's possibility there could be something out there that could be. I mean, if you could even just find some DNA evidence on some fragment of
that landfill is long covered over with everything.
Okay, so there's no way to go out there now and try to do a deep dive search and say, let's see if we could find it or find something.
No.
And then this Michael Campbell guy, you said he did testify at the trial. He actually testified.
Yeah.
What is his purpose for testifying at trial? Was this by the defense or the state?
No, state witness.
Wow.
He testified because, he more or less had to, because he and his friend went to Zach's place in a threatening manner, trespassed on his property, and in a threatening way, our friend is missing. We think Zach has something to do with it. And Zach, in reply, Zach's not here. So he presented himself as his brother to these two guys.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. So, and then Zach called the cops on these two guys.
Right.
And there is recording of the 911 call. And then the cops show up and arrest Zach. So in all of this, you have this alleged killer who doesn't flee, goes about his normal routine, calls the cops to his home. Have you ever heard of a murderer who wants the cops to show up at his home? And the prosecution gravely turned that around to Zachariah is a dishonest man. He lied about his name to these two guys.
But these were two guys not related to law enforcement or anything like that. So why the hell why would that be any type of anything? Because I wouldn't say who the hell I was if I did two people that I don't know who are at
That's
my house.
right.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's exactly what happened.
There's no.
They were even told to not interfere,
right?
And they still went out to Zach's place.
I would be saying, "Hell no, I don't know who he is."
That's exactly what he said, and that's what they.
I mean, if any, let's play with the thought that I am American, that I live in Wisconsin,
sure.
And two aggressive guys shows up at my property, trespassing, may or may not have been armed.
Right.
I'm bringing out my shotgun.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely.
And then I might call the cops, depending on the result.
Well, I was going to say, if you were in West Virginia and you had two people show up at your house, you have every right. Once you tell them to leave,
Have you got the stand your ground there too?
It's a form of stand your ground. It's not, but it's the idea that if you're in your home and someone comes on that's not, you can
use lethal force.
You can use lethal force if they don't leave. You know, if they're. I mean, if they're coming at you or they're getting aggressive or in any way threatening you, you know, and there's been, my dad won several cases, and then even when he was consulting as well, he had several cases.
Have you had him on your show?
He unfortunately has passed away.
Oh,
yeah.
They started the YouTube channel together.
Now the plan was when we started this, because I started this channel a year ago, he was alive still. So we were working on it. We were going to get him on, and then literally he was about to come on. His debut case was going to be the Crumley dad case, because in that case my dad was very interested in that one because of the way they were expanding the law to try to include in the involuntary, and he had all sorts of stuff he was going to talk about, and he died on a Thursday. before the Saturday he was going to be coming.
First of all, I'm sorry for the loss, and second of all, an opportunity lost.
Yes,
I would have loved to talk to you, Dad. I would have loved to talk to you, Dad. Now, okay, now we listened to this guy about the blood evidence. You heard him say, blood everywhere, blood on the ceiling, blood on the fan, blood on the curtains. I have shared the crime scene photo.
Yes.
If you could bring that up.
Absolutely. Yep, there it is. Let's make this big right here. And
might get him off.
There we go. All right.
Oh, okay. Now we are hiding the blood.
All right. Hold on a second here. Let's move. Hold on.
There you are. Hello. We are all professionals here. There.
Right, here we are.
Yeah. That's it.
That's the blood. All right. Let me zoom in here real quick here. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that's the alleged Freddy Krueger crime scene that the state tries to lay out. But I could see where the rug would have been, right in there.
And you see all the footprints. And now,
that's. It looks like he answers the door. He's coming right here, and potentially whoever did whatever they did right here, shoots him, whatever.
This was, according to the state, it was a battering, blunt force trauma scene. And it was a blunt force trauma scene all the way to the prison snitch Munch said he was stabbed. And then the prosecution had to change their story into, he was first bludgeoned and then stabbed.
So how do they know it was blunt force or stabbing or gunshot? I mean, how would you know that?
It's something about the blood spatter pattern.
Okay.
That if you do it with a knife, you have these clear markings of spray in the ceiling or on the walls and stuff like that. But here it is scattered driplets. Okay. And that apparently is the difference between blunt force trauma and sharp force trauma.
What about if he was, and I guess if he was shot, there would have been blood up on the walls? Is that what they're saying? Or
so that is the conclusion.
There is closer pictures that does show.
Yeah, let's see here. You have, let's see, here is another picture from another area. And here is the pooling on the sofa. So at some point, he sat there, bleeding.
Well, maybe. Well, what I'm thinking is maybe that's where he was sitting when it happened. Is that possible? And then it would have.
No, there's blood on the front door to the apartment. Yeah. And
there is. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see here if I can find some of this. Let's see if I can share this part. Oh yeah, here. This is an apartment complex. He lives just on the bottom floor with a patio. And the patio is just beside the front door. And nobody saw this crime happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
And nobody heard it. But what I don't understand, it's an apartment complex. How does nobody hear something like that? Let's just say, obviously, if it was a gunshot, everybody's hearing it. But if there's a struggle between two people, you're going to tell me in that apartment complex nobody heard a disturbance?
One witness.
A thump,
one witness heard I heard something sounding like somebody was thrown against a wall. But they also changed their mind.
Yeah.
Because they first said it, they heard it on the Sunday, on the 18th.
Okay.
And then after a meeting with the prosecutor, they changed the story. No, we heard it on the 17th.
Oh, and the 17th is when the prosecution needs this to happen. Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this question. Was there cell phone data evidence, location data evidence at all showing that
nothing? There is
Zachariah
no evidence
anywhere near
whatsoever.
this?
No. Zachariah claims he was sleeping. So there was no thing going on with his phone. So they claimed that from the time when Zach probably was home and the phone stopped moving, that is when the prosecution claimed he drove all the way to Kenosha, a 1-hour drive. And in 9 to 14 minutes, all of this happened, and then drove home without any cameras spotting him.
And that this would have just now. My question would be this, right? So we're to believe then that Zachariah Anderson shows up at this guy's house, no contact, no I'm coming, knocks on the door, and this guy just lets him in his
Blitz
apartment.
attack,
Blitz attack.
blunt force trauma at the door and into the apartment.
Which again would have been heard by everyone in that building if that's how this went down. Because, in my opinion, I mean, if he's doing it outside, people would
It
have
was
heard
in the middle
that.
of
It wouldn't
COVID
just
too,
be
remember?
Yeah.
and
And
the
this
door is going
is
to be open.
this is Rosalio's front door. The prosecution claims he hid under the stairs by the mailboxes, knocked on the door, and blitz attack.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So because there are some blood spatter at this door.
On the outside of the door.
Let's see here. Hold on while I find. There's some blood spatter here. There's some blood. Yeah.
So that had to have been open.
Yeah.
At the time.
At the time, potentially that that this went down.
Yeah. So there are some blood spatter at that door. But also, this was in the height of the global pandemic. Everybody was home.
Right,
they ordered home food. The mail was delivered. You had, ordered home stuff from Amazon. And nobody in 2 days' time saw the mailboxes with the blood driplets. Not one.
Wow.
Let's see here. And this is interesting. Outside Rosalio's patio, there was these cigarette bunts. What do you call them?
Cigarette butts, yeah.
Yeah, butts.
Yep.
They were never tested.
Oh, okay. Nice. Wow. And those are in Rosario didn't smoke, correct?
No.
No. Okay. And Zach didn't smoke, obviously.
No,
right?
not to my knowledge.
Wow. Well, I mean, it sounds like somebody had to have been at the apartment, that there had to have been, I mean, if they're trying to get the body out and they're trying to move it, I mean, how does no one in the apartment complex see any of this? There were no ring cameras. There's nothing, I guess.
None collected, to my knowledge. And let's go back to the picture. Here is the apartment complex. Here is the patio on the left side. You see the police tape.
Right.
And the claim is that Zach, he was at the time 6 foot, 200 pounds.
Right.
Rosalio was 6'2", 270 pounds. Now, he lost weight, according to his mother. Well, on the wanted poster, it said 270 to 300 pounds, because where is Rosalio? But in testimony, all of a sudden he was trying to lose weight and might have been 240 pounds or even down to 220. So that his weight changed quite a lot during.
Because that's the issue.
But still, there are no drag marks. There are no droplets showing he was carried out. And how can one guy with a confirmed chronic back pain lift this 270? Now they claim in the rolled up rug here. Let's see. Let's go back to the crime scene. Where are the crime scene? Yeah. So the rolled up rug, which they claim had to be the size of 5 foot by 7 foot. He rolled him up there, hermetically sealed it, maybe with duct tape and plastic bags and this rolled up carpet. Remember, all this must have happened in a 9 to 14 minute time span.
According to the state.
According to the state.
Yeah.
The blitz attack at the door, the struggle. There are some driplets on the walls and ceiling. At one point, he was in the sofa, bleeding, enough for it to pool. And then somehow he went down to the floor and then rolled up, hermetically sealed, carried out without any trace. Nobody saw anything, into a family van where he must have been placed on a 3 foot by 4 foot area.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, And then where does he allegedly take this body that he's going to be able to make
Never
it
been
disappear
found.
in such a way
Nobody.
that it can never be found? I mean, does he have access to a crematorium? Does he have
Well,
access
he's
to?
in demolition, so
Yeah, they searched his house and property. They searched his dad's house and property. There were no traces of anything of him, of Rosario. No DNA, no anything. They
Was
made
there
a point.
any work sites he was involved in that were doing concrete laying at the time or anything like that? That was
Not
involved
according
in
to the
this trouble?
state.
No. Okay.
Not according to the state, because they have, through Zach's phone records, they know where he was the following days. They have
Right.
photos of him going to to a Walmart, buying these Kleenex wipes, which they claimed he used to clean up the back of his van.
So good that there was only one minute piece of alleged DNA in the back of it. That Kleenex wipes were allowed him to do that. Now, did they do luminol testing in the van at all?
Oh yeah. Hold on. I will find it for you. Let's see where it is.
This is where the daughter's testimony is very important, because it kind of.
Let's see here.
Almost. In fact, I think it's the weight of her testimony is probably what ultimately convinced the jury.
Let's see here if I find it. Yeah. Here is. Now, this is a composite picture. They have
Bring it up.
the bottom picture. I will bring it up. The bottom picture is the back of Zach's van.
Okay.
In the dark, sprayed with luminol and everything, and it's compared to a tub with luminol and how it sees. And
okay, so that's a tub, right, with luminol.
Yeah.
That would show
and the
blood.
bottom picture is Zach's van.
Oh,
So there's no reaction, basically,
No reaction.
like that you would expect. I mean, I don't see.
but there was bleach stains in the back of on the carpet, wasn't there, in the back of his van?
Well, the carpet in the back of the van had some old bleach stains, but he was a contractor.
Right. I mean, it looks like there's like some slight reaction in the back here, but nothing like that where there would have been.
And even how good you are at cleaning, then it will show it had been cleaned with the swiping motions.
Yep.
So, but they did find. Let's see if I can find that picture.
But if all right, let's think outside the square and say that the state has it wrong, their timeline is wrong, and there could have potentially been an initial blitz attack, and then the perpetrator locks everything up, leaves it as it is, and comes back later, and with the duct tape and the rug and the garbage bags, takes their time and meticulously, 10 layers if he wants to, with duct tape and everything, seals everything airtight.
Yeah,
Would get blood stains in the back of the van?
Yeah, but then if he returned to the crime scene, that would have been presented at trial, because they had his phone extractions, and he has everything, his whereabouts on the entirety of the day after and on the 19th. That checks out.
Was it at his home?
He was either at his home or he was at Walmart buying supplies. He bought
There's no dead
Kleenex wipes, 2 cans of sardines, and some plastic bags. And of course, well, he's a contractor working with insulation. Of course, you buy plastic bags, but they alluded he must have used up all of his plastic bags in this crime and now had to buy new ones. So,
So I guess the thing that I think is a little bit far out is like, so we're to believe that he goes to this guy's house, plans to kill him, I guess, right? And I guess this thing goes to everything would have to be being done by him. You said in 9 to 14 minutes, but he's supposed to have then been able to clean up this. Because I'm assuming when was this guy found? Like 2 days later? Is this?
Yeah, he was never found.
He's never found.
But the crime scene,
was found.
the
Well, I
crime scene was
guess-
found.
When was it? When was it found? Yeah, when was he found to be missing? 2 days later? Or is that
2
how
days.
much time-
Well, he was missing on the 17th, according to the state. At 9:27 was the last thing with his phone.
But when
And
when
it
Sadie
was found around noon, 2 days later.
so essentially at that point, Zacharias, anything he's doing at that point, he becomes under scrutiny. So he's not able to any longer work in quiet or
No, it is this 2 day span when the state claims everything happened, because after that he's in jail. He's
Right.
arrested.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. So we're to believe then in that 2 days period that he was able to, in addition to doing all the things he was doing in his life and living normally, that he's able to clean this car up, do all of this outside the light of any cameras, or be seen going anywhere, or be seen. And I'm assuming they didn't, like when they're looking at his phone, that they have no cell phone data indicating he was anywhere where a body could have been hidden or anything of that nature.
Mm.
So, okay. Interesting. I mean, it sounds like there's some definite issues in this case that are.
Oh, absolutely.
So, did any jurors speak to the press or anyone as to what their deliberations were?
Not one, not a single one.
And no one's been able. Was his attorneys able to speak to them?
No.
So
yeah. And by the way, this is the back of Zach's. What they claim is the back of his cleaned up van, which is I think it's a caravan.
Oh wow! Okay. So does he? And he normally doesn't have seats back there and everything, correct?
Well, he has, because when he drives the kids, he puts in the back seats again.
But it's normal for him to be driving around in this condition, correct? Because I mean, that could be something that would be a little suspicious.
Yeah.
Why would you take all your seats out? If that's
one of because they made a big point about he cut out this part of the rug.
Mm-hmm.
So because it must have been blood and everything. But that is I've been looking at close-up of it, and that is an old cut, according to me. And as you can see, there's dirt everywhere. It's not cleaned.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see here if we can find the spot where they claim where they found. This is the cleaned up car, according to them. And let's see if I can find it. Okay, let's. So this is it. So it's not a big van, and on the side, let's see, on the side panel here is where that spot was found. Side panel.
On the side panel, and what made them go to that? What made them go to that area?
Well, throughout this van, there are a number of brownish red spots.
Okay.
And stuff like that. They tested a lot of them. None of them were blood. Okay. But this particular one they tested, but it was too tiny to test for both blood and DNA, so they tested it for only DNA. And this is when the testimony about match to Rosalio came through. Now, Rosalio dated Zach's ex, Sadie, who found them. And he had to bring the kids back and forth. Rosalio had been in the home. I mean, transfer DNA is a thing.
Right, of course. Oh, yeah. Of course.
Yeah. And there was testimony between Sadie and Rosalio about doing something about about
Breaking
Zach.
his legs or something.
Breaking his legs. But there's nothing in it. They never checked Rosalio's phone. Where was his whereabouts? Had he gone to Zach's house and searched through his place? We don't know, because it was never presented in that way, at least.
So did they present any evidence as to when people first noticed that Zach had cut out the back carpet of his van?
Yep. The prosecution brought in the person Zach was doing work for at the time, unsolicited, testified about, the week before she saw his van, he was loading in, and she noticed he had a bit of the rug cut out before this crime happened.
Before it happened. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not at all then something that's strange then.
But then
No.
the daughter contradicts that, doesn't she?
The daughter contradicts that, but she had no mentions of the rug in the back until after one of the later meetings, unrecorded meetings with Prosecutor Gravely. All of a sudden, and they alluded to some things about the saw, the
Chainsaw.
the chainsaw.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and they alluded to, well, Zach might have cut him up, but they tested that chainsaw.
They would have had chunks of flesh and sorry to be horrible, but
Where
everywhere.
where are they alleging he would have done all of this at?
They never did.
Okay.
They never did.
So basically,
they only had this hiding of the corpse.
Right.
But they searched his place, his property, his dad's place, his dad's property, and no traces.
Was he charged with disposing of a corpse?
Yep.
Yes.
He was. Okay. Gotcha.
What about the fire pit? They claimed that there was a heap of his clothing found in the fire pit, jeans, buttons, and the steel caps from boots.
Yeah. The prosecution claimed he must have burnt his clothes there but they found the buttons from at least 3 pairs of old jeans. They found 2 former boots. I mean, it was a burn pile because what he couldn't get to a landfill, he burnt. And this apparently happens all over the rural areas of Wisconsin. People burn stuff.
Well, but he was. So you're saying though that there was a burn pit found, which I'm sure that's the case. But essentially, from the state's, obvious arguments would be, the jury would be allowed to infer, as that being obvious circumstantial evidence, that we have a guy who is killed, and then we have this individual who's accused of it, and he's got a burn pit with clothes in it. Did they test the burn pit and try to identify DNA? Was there DNA linking the victim? Was there DNA linking Zach to it?
No.
What did they do to tie that to Zach? To say that
by inferencing the burn pit and the clothes.
Right, but how do they know Zach put the clothes in the burn pit? Was there any?
Well, it was a burn pit on his property.
Right, but
he told people that he was doing construction work. Well, everybody knew he did construction work, and what he couldn't go to a landfill or put in a trash, whatever could burn, he put in there.
So, but the clothes were burned up there was not enough left of the clothes that they could see anything on or see.
There was enough to do testing on some parts, but none came back with Rosalio's DNA or anything.
No blood or anything.
No blood or anything.
And his explanation was that he normally burned clothes in a burn pit. Is that?
He burns stuff. Whatever can burn when he starts the burn pit, he burns.
And did he recognize the clothes that were in it and the purpose for why he
Gary Ferris?
Well, according to the daughter's testimony, because they found Levi's buttons in there, and she claimed her dad never wore Levi's.
Levi's.
Yeah, But then the defense brought forward what he was wearing at the time of the arrest.
Yeah.
Levi's.
Oh, okay. So there it is. Yeah.
Do you want to listen to some of the daughter's testimony?
Oh, this is horrible. I have anxiety
I know,
about her
I know.
testimony because that poor kid. That poor kid.
Is it pretty hard to watch?
Well, you don't see her.
Oh, okay.
You only
Minor.
hear her.
You hear her. I got it.
Yeah.
But she shouldn't have been put in this place. Like, but it is pivotal to the trial. So,
Well, you want to know an interesting thing before we go into that? I will tell you. My dad had a landmark case in West Virginia that he was attempting. He had attempted. It was one of the first times in West Virginia history that he was attempting to make the argument that children should have the same privilege as marital privilege against their parents, as far as having to incriminate, because in the idea behind marital privilege has always been that you don't let the wife testify against the husband because it would fracture the house, it would destroy the relationship. And he said, well, if you've got husband and wife, there's no, an equal relationship to husband wife is child parent. So unless it's to say that the parent hurt the child should never be put in a position to have to testify against their parent.
Yeah.
Because it fractures the potential relationship. So there should be a privilege between child and parent. The West Virginia Supreme Court did not side with him, but he got some big press on that back in the 80s when he was attempting to turn that into a law. Yeah.
Now, at the time of OA's testimony here, she hasn't seen her dad in over 2 years. She's been in at least 4 or 5 unrecorded interviews with the prosecutor. She is solely dependent on her mother, and the mother, in my opinion, has a clear interest in convicting Zach due to the previous custody battle they were about to enter.
Gotcha. So what you're saying is that obviously the motivation for her to get Zach convicted in this case of doing something to her ex or to her current boyfriend would be now she gets custody of the child because now Zach's in jail.
All the children.
Prison, and all the children. So it resolves almost all the issues she had in her life in regards to custody of those children.
Yeah, because allegedly, she was a party goer. She left the kids at home with a friend of hers to go to Mexico to drink.
Oh, wow.
Which infuriated Zach, who went to Sadie's house about 4 a.m, got the kids up, got the kids dressed, and we're not doing this.
How old are the kids when this happens? The Mexican
trip? OA was 12, and the twins were, I want to say 4 or 5.
Why wasn't she charged with child neglect? Because I mean, we've had cases recently where a mom went to I guess it was Puerto Rico for like 3 days and left her. Now this was an infant child, but left her child to go drink. So if she's going to Mexico to go drink out of the country and leaving her kids with a 12-year-old, at least they
were with a friend of Sadie's.
Oh, okay. So she had a friend there. All right, I was about to say. I was like,
but this was one of these with a contention about the custody, because this apparently wasn't the only. She had left the kids at home alone while she was out partying to get home later that evening. There may or may not have allegedly been more than alcohol involved in that partying. So, and may or may not allegedly, Mr. Guterres had interesting friends in the drug business. I mean, I have to do all these allegedly as Ashley 3 says, she didn't give Zach first right of refusal because he was available to watch the kids. If she wanted to go drink, she could have dropped the kids off at his house.
Right.
And she never did. She never even told him. He found out from somebody else that she was in Mexico partying. and the kids were. The
Well,
friend
the
was staying
question-
at the house.
Well, the only response I would have to that is, by her having to utilize Zach, it almost makes him have to give her permission, because then he can object to her going to Mexico and he has a say in her life. So I think she might, one argument you could make to say, well, why does she get a friend, or why does she get a person if their relationship wasn't
Yeah,
wasn't
their
good, she might
relationship
not have
was
wanted to-
rocky.
Well,
It
that's
was-
what I'm saying. She might not have felt like she wanted to have to say, listen, I want to go to Mexico and go out, and he's going to object to that. So then he's going to try to do everything he can.
Yeah, but
to
they
get
weren't in
away.
court yet in the custody. They were both preparing for a
Gotcha.
custody battle.
Gotcha.
Which goes back to this. Yeah, I have construction done. I'm renovating downstairs, and they shows now.
Yeah.
And for my regular viewers who are here, no, that is not a person trying to get out.
Are you sure? Did you not have Rosario there?
Now, when it comes to this custody battle and everything, we don't know if Zach contacted a lawyer or anything, but if you know anything about custody battles, if you can't afford to hire, you can go to a consult, a lawyer, who then might tell you, well, I can't do much with this. You have to collect evidence.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. I was going to say you have to collect. I know quite a bit just from my own personal experiences, and that was one of my dad's big focuses, because he basically, the criminal law doesn't pay much. So what he did, the money he made was in domestic law.
Yeah.
So,
family law.
Family law.
That
And so one of the things that he used, that he would tell me, he would consult with friends of mine, and when I went through a divorce myself. But yeah, you have to have, what he would tell me is like, you should be, and I'm sure she got this advice and he would have too, is they would say, you get a calendar and you keep track of every doctor appointment you take the child to, every time you have the child. So that's why I was getting at, was saying the idea that she wouldn't want to, like if they were getting ready to have a custody dispute, she would not want the kids in his possession, because every day that they go to his house, when they go to court, he can say, see, I should be the custodial parent, because the kids have been with me 200 days out of the year. And that is an actual legitimate argument that can be made if he were to go to court and say, when they're looking at who should be the custodial parent, they're looking at
It wasn't to do with that, though. It was to do with the fact that they found all this information on about the victim on the defendant's laptop.
Yeah. So Zach had a folder or a file on his computer with information about Rosario.
Okay.
Since Rosario and Sadie had been dating since, I want to say, February to May, and she was about to get serious with Rosario. Now Rosario allegedly had one more booty call and two more on the way.
Right.
Yeah. So he might not have been as serious as Sadie about it.
You think?
Nowhere close. Yeah.
So what was the contents of that folder that was on his?
It was about him. It was his past, social media, party pictures, and people he allegedly hung. I mean, it was a big folder, because Zach apparently was really prepared, because if that was the guy who was around his kids,
right,
then he could use that against Sadie in the coming custody battle.
Because absolutely, because he would have the right, if he was going to be moving in with her, then he would have a right to explore him and her as well.
Yeah, and this was used in trial as the stalking charge. Now, he did do some things that may or may not have been a bit over the top, with going to Rosalio's apartment and spying.
So was the stalking of Rosario or his ex-wife?
Both.
Two charges of stalking.
Oh, so there was a history of Zach going actually to this guy's apartment
At
Once.
one time.
One
On
time.
Once.
the 13th.
And that was how many days before this happened? Like 4 days before it happened?
4.
Yeah.
So then, all right. So then,
a week or two. I don't actually remember the exact time.
so then, basically, was the states. So, in my opinion, I mean, I don't know what the states. I'm just spitballing here. But was the state's theory that he went to go stalk this guy to see if Sadie was there and look and see, or was it that and then he gets caught because maybe because he opens the door for some reason and says
That's the only time his phone pinged in that area.
and then they have
Yeah.
a confrontation and get into it. But
Wasn't the 13th.
No, the state's case was Jack, in a rage of jealousy, drove there, hid under the stairs, knocked on the door. Rosario answered, and then blitz attack.
and what is the jealous triggering moment that the state has that says this guy goes, you know what?
Because
I'm going to go
he just
kill this guy.
introduced his kids to her.
Yeah, he was going to introduce his kids to her, and vice versa. That
I
it
got
should, yeah.
So Zach
But
was so
there was
enraged by
signs.
that he said, I'm going to go to his house and kill this man and throw away my life. And that's how I'm going to solve this because, of course, every child custody court's going to say, we want to put kids with a guy who kills someone.
Yeah, and he's both enraged enough to commit something he's been never close to in his life, and a criminal mastermind who managed to hide his body and every trace of himself on the crime scene. So, yeah, they argued both ways, both this enraged jealousy, but also this criminal mastermind who managed to remove all his DNA and fingerprints because they didn't find any.
Even though we have, and then at the crime scene, of course, we have the unidentified DNA, which would indicate that, yes, there was someone there who did this. His DNA got left behind, but the state just wants to ignore that because it's like, well, that's not convenient to proving Zach. So therefore, he had to have been like,
There is though a lot of messages and stuff between him and Sadie, and he really didn't accept that the relationship was over at all. He was derogatory towards both of them, to be honest. The way he spoke to her, it was almost like he would say something, and because she didn't say "I love you" back, then he would turn that around and like, I'm trying to tell you I love you and you're not reciprocating, and blame it on her when she wasn't interested in getting back with him. It was like he could not accept that was over.
Yeah, that is the claim from, and she was so petrified by him and everything. But in all of this, outside of what was presented, Zach didn't have a washer and dryer in his house because of the renovations. So she let him use hers on a regular basis. So apparently she wasn't scared enough for that.
But there was no protection order or anything, was it?
No protection order, no protection. No, she did go for a restraining order after he was arrested. Yeah. And I was going somewhere with I will remember later.
The daughter? The daughter?
No, not about the daughter, but yeah, with the Rosario business, with the amount of women in his life. And
man.
Yeah, apparently he's a ladies' man, and all of this, because the state's case is about these 9 to 14 minutes, and then they go out and try to prove those 9 to 14 minutes. And then they bring in the custody thing with his folder and the daughter's testimony and Sadie pointing at that direction, ignoring everything else. Now, Dave, on Making Law Simple, he did one of these. It's called it's the equivalent of when they have a hearing about the third-party culprit. And in order for a third-party culprit, you have to show a nexus. Means, motive, opportunity. And in that, they have to show that Campbell, was near Rosalio's place in a close enough time of this. And they only had his phone pinging there some 12 hours before this happened. 12 or the previous night or something like
The
that.
previous night.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Rosalio couldn't meet Sadie because he was meeting with Campbell that night. Now we know the truth is that he had a booty call with this other woman. But what Dave did was that he turned it around. If Campbell had been on trial, would Zach have survived one of these hearings? Means motive, opportunity. And there's no trace of him near the crime scene. So if the roles had been reversed between Campbell and Zach, Campbell wouldn't have been able to use Zach as a third-party culprit defense.
Gotcha. And what was the basis for turning down the third-party culprit defense? Did they just say that there wasn't enough evidence, or
They couldn't show Campbell was there in close proximity of the time-wise on the crime scene?
What's the standard of proof they had to come in with in order to get the third-party defense? Was it
The defense has to show with clear and convincing evidence.
With clear and convincing. Okay, so
Yeah.
it was a much higher standard than preponderance or anything like
Yeah.
that. I got you. And the judge basically said that, in his opinion, a jury could not conclude that.
Yeah.
With what the defense put on. Was that hearing held during the trial, or was that held
that was a pre-trial.
So is that online as well, where you can see
only the transcript exists?
Oh wow! So that wasn't broadcast on TV then?
It wasn't. Let's see here if I.
Well, that's a shame, because that would be very helpful to have to be able to see that, because that sounds like.
Oh, and by the I found that picture of the route that Zach had to take back and forth to time-wise make this happen.
Oh, wow.
And this is the amount of cameras, because if Zach takes any other route to Rosalio's apartment, he is going to be late.
Wow.
And these are the main roads. And these are the amount of traffic cameras.
And they don't have any footage from any of those traffic cameras?
Zero.
How do they not have any footage? Is there any evidence they collected the traffic camera footage?
They did collect, but since he wasn't shown on any traffic cameras, they couldn't present it in trial because he wasn't shown on any traffic cameras.
But his defense did present that as evidence in the trial.
This particular was in cross-examinations and in the case in chief, they told about the fact there is simply no time. He was never caught on any traffic cameras. They did not show this picture. This is sadly something that was through crowdsourcing of everybody else.
So his defense did not go through and say, let's find out how many traffic cameras were along the route he would have had to have taken.
Orally, they did it, but not with. And I don't know actually if they tried and
they weren't allowed to.
They weren't allowed to. I don't know that.
And the police actually did attempt to go get all of this footage, or do we know if they actually did? Like, or did they just look for ones that were in the vicinity of the victim's house? Like, how extensive did the police go in trying to locate? I would assume they would have done that hugely. So that's why I would think to myself that would be huge.
They didn't collect any cameras from the immediate areas that we know of. They didn't even check if there were any. They did check some gas stations along the way and stuff like that, but he was not shown. But these are the number in 2020. These are the traffic cameras that were on the routes, and there's a lot of them. And this doesn't even include the businesses or anything, or the train tracks or side routes. Nothing.
Wow.
These are just the traffic cameras.
And why are they? Why do they believe that why is the state tied into this 9 to 14 minutes? What's the significance of that being?
Because that's the Zach's phone stopped working because according to Zach, he took a nap after a full day of work or something with the kids. He was about to go on a date with his current girlfriend at the time, or something like that. The chat will correct me if I'm wrong here. And then he woke up and called his girlfriend or texted her girlfriend at a certain point in time. So they have this time limit where he can drive to Rosalio's apartment, drive back, and this leaves a 9 to 14 minute time span. But it's the only way this crime could be put on Zach is a 9 to 14 minute time span.
Which is basically the time that was his phone. His phone was turned off. You're saying,
or not moving at least. The claim is he left the phone at home.
At home,
Yeah.
and there's no activity on the phone from that time until this time that he calls. And did he cancel the date with the girl?
Well, he talked or texted his girlfriend at that time about something about the date.
Instead, but he didn't go on that date, right? Or did he?
I know she was with him in his house the day after, and but not on the Monday.
But he didn't. But that night he didn't go on a date or show up somewhere.
Not to my knowledge.
So are you talking the 17th?
So then what I'm saying is that basically the next day he sees her. So that's where we could start the clock to say he had to do whatever he did from, obviously he talks to the girlfriend, which means he gets back to his phone, and then he starts the process of whatever he did allegedly to clean up.
The morning after, he goes to Walmart to buy this restocking of supplies. They were supposed to watch a movie,
and he never showed up. Is that what happened?
I don't know if they were supposed to watch it at her place or go to the movies or at his place.
So what was the theory why he would have ended up saying, like, I guess this to me is what I would have honed in on if I'm his defense, is saying, okay, he's got plans to go meet this new girlfriend. So what is the triggering factor that says, all right, you have plans to go meet somebody. Why in the world are you going to decide right then that you're going to make an hour trip to your ex's new man's house? No.
The victim wasn't it the victim that had?
No, the victim was supposed to meet his booty call. She was outside the apartment, or as the state alleges, she was outside the wrong apartment.
Okay.
And so
Zach had an appointment with them for a movie. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, so wait a minute here. So let me just clarify something here. So you're saying that there was a booty call in that apartment complex outside observing who would have gone up to his
the wrong
door.
building.
Yeah.
Did she ever go up to his door, or did she just?
No, she stayed in the car waiting for him for 45 minutes for some reason.
And was he supposed to come out to the car and get her? Was that normally what they would do?
It was a really strange testimony because the text messages between Rosalio and this person went back and forth because it was the height of seaweed, but the bars were still open, but she didn't want to go out drink with him. And she also didn't want to go into the apartment, according to her. So she stayed outside for him to come out to her.
Now, I thought I heard something, and this is something I just heard in passing. Wasn't there a water bottle or something found in the apartment or something?
There were 2 beer bottles and 1 water bottle.
And there was an indication that he had been like entertaining somebody or something, correct? Like he had cut up lines and started drinking.
He had a couple
something of the
it looked
sort.
like there was a partially drank water bottle, so it looked like whoever was there was coming in. Apparently, she didn't want to drink, so she was like having water or something. So wouldn't that then? So why didn't anyone explore this possibility? Obviously, this is some sort of a booty call. What if she's going to rob him? And she had somebody.
Well, she's a court. She was a court She's hired by a neighboring county's court. So I don't think she was involved in any crimes or anything. Yeah, she said she wanted water in texts. Now, she claims she never went into the apartment. She waited outside for 45 minutes for a first date for some odd reason.
Right.
And
She was telling
Well, what I mean, but what I mean is that if they believe it happened during that time, and she's there at the apartment at the time this had to have happened, and there's evidence that he was entertaining somebody, then regardless of what good person you think she might have been, was there a possibility that she could have had some sort of a situation where, she went there and some person followed her because they don't like her being with this guy and killed him, and she covers it up because she doesn't want to be a part of it, and that's why
yeah, that's it. I've never thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that would be a route that would be making
that
a
would
lot
give
of sense.
Sadie a motive.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've never thought of that angle.
Yeah,
That's a completely new angle.
And because to me, like the water, there's a water. At least I remember hearing something about there being a water bottle. There being
didn't test the
cut
water,
up lines.
They never tested either the beer bottles or the water bottle for DNA.
But it's indicating to me that it's like somebody, they're entertaining each other, and then the door opens, and then she's standing in there, and then because how do you get the body out? There's two people now helping because she's in there and like, oh my God, this happened. And of course, is she going to be interested in talking about this? Absolutely not, because she's there, she's scared, she's helped, and once she starts helping, she's tied into the crime. So the question would then be is, and of course you have then Sadie come on scene where you have her motivation is her motivation's two-pronged. She just doesn't like him. So she's like, he's stalking me, and then she's got a child custody dispute. So in Sadie's mind, again, this is where a lot of people get into like, well, why would people do this, or how does something end up? Well, it's like organic, because it's like people don't realize what they're doing sometimes because they have their own
What about
self-interest.
the back of Sadie's car, Nick?
So Sadie thinks he maybe did this, so she pursues it. And then of course Zachariah, who's just like, has this file on his computer, but the problem is he's not linked anywhere in the case to the case. So it's like circumstantial evidence is evidence by inference, but that doesn't mean
Sadie could have found this other woman there. Is that what you're saying? Like,
no, I'm saying that this other woman who's coming to a booty call at a guy's house, if you don't look into her background, how do you know she doesn't have somebody that's following her, that's upset with her going to another man's booty call, and he comes in and knocks on the door or busts in the door or opens the door, and she opens the door and says, oh my God, and he comes busting in, who the hell is this asshole? And Rosario's sounding like he's a rough guy. He comes up and confronts him. They get into it. They get in a fight, and then he gets killed, and then she's standing there, oh my God, what have you done? And he says, you better help me because you brought him here. And of course this woman's freaking out, and then they clean it up and they get him out, and this whole thing happened.
And Ashley 3 here says this witness had an abusive ex.
Well, there it is. I mean, that's where this goes. To me, this looks like this is a scenario where that would make more sense. And then if the prosecutors are covering this, if she was involved in the court system, that's where the justice system here would jump into effect to say, no, we're not going to have somebody
brought in an appeal.
I mean, it could be potentially, but you got to get that third-party DNA tested against the ex. I mean, because if there is DNA there to be tested, you go get the ex tested.
They said it was inconclusive, though, didn't they?
Yeah.
Well,
and I got the request from Lawcom to bring up, in this area there was a series of burglaries the week before, and in this, for some odd reason, just inside the screen door was Rosalio's tool bag, which was almost emptied.
Really?
Yeah, I'll see. Hold on while I see if I can find that.
That was unusual that it was there too.
Yeah.
Because it was open.
So why would it be emptied then? That's crazy. That sounds a little
maybe
odd,
that was what was used as the blunt force trauma.
So to me, it sounds like there's a lot of potential.
There's so many holes.
There are so many. Let's see if I can find that crime scene photo of the tool bar. Yeah, here it is.
And Sadie had the back of her car. She had this big decal on it. Basically, she'd seen this guy all of 2 months. He was banging at least 2 other people, and she had this big memorial on the back of her car. Like,
that was Rosalio's mother. I was wrong on that bit. That was Rosalio's mother's car, not Sadie's car. But she still went to court, and she tried to get money from the court almost as them. But I put the photo up of the toolbox just inside the screen door. There it is.
Wow.
Let's see if I...
How do we make that? Full screen it? How do I make that?
But see, that would make more sense to me that there was that there could have ended up being 2 people there, which would absolutely explain how the body gets out and what they do. But
yeah, so that is just inside the screen door.
And there's no. Was there any? Did they ever look into any relationship that would have been between possibly the booty call and the Campbell guy? Whether or not they had any type of interaction and knew each other or anything like that?
No, and
because I mean,
when Sadie showed up at the crime scene and called 911, within an hour, Campbell and his friend shows up at the crime scene too. And that's interesting because there's no phone calls or Facebook. There's no reason they should be there. Why are all these people gathering at the same time at the crime scene? That's weird because I mean this is an old trope that criminals always return to the crime scene. You have this with arsonists; they want to watch it happen.
Absolutely.
So why are all these people gathering there?
And what was their explanation for being there? Was that did he normally pick him up for work, or was there a normal reason why he would show up at Rosario's house? As far as Campbell.
Well, Campbell is a friend, and he does work for Rosario at times. And at this point in time, Rosario owed him money. And when in the crime scene, you can see where Rosilio sat. Beside that is his wallet, just laid on the sofa, emptied of money. In the freezer, they found find his phone and credit cards.
Like a Faraday.
Yeah, like they were trying to block out these signals to say that way nobody would track into their house.
Yeah, or and it's so much strange going on. And according to, I haven't checked this out myself, but according to Law Kong, at least one of these credit cards belonged not to him.
Okay.
Yeah, and on those items is where they found that unknown male DNA.
Yeah.
It was on his items. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so that's very significant. So that would mean that was the person that put those in the freezer then.
Yeah.
Which probably was involved in whatever happened to him because they put that in the freezer.
And I've seen Innocence Project ex-honorees who were freed of this crime because they found somebody else's unknown DNA at the crime scene. And here they have it in the trial. An unknown male had the items or touched the items. Yeah.
Wow.
It's been a common thread throughout the trial. That's why I'm laughing.
But so you're saying that DNA that was on those items, would not be able to be tested, or it could
those were tested. They were tested, and
but they were tested against Zach, right?
Zach, Rosalio, and Rosalio's son, but didn't belong to either of them.
But what about Campbell? Was it tested against Campbell?
No, because Campbell, according to the prosecution, was only a witness and was called a hero
But is there a way for Zach's defense to get Campbell tested now? Why did Zach's defense?
They have to subpoena that.
Well, no, I know, but I mean, if you're going to make a third-party defense and you need to go clear and convincing, if you could have got his DNA on there, why would they not have done that?
Yeah, but in order for them to submit that subpoena, they have to survive the third-party defense hearing. Then they can subpoena. And since it didn't survive, then they can't subpoena it.
So you're saying that wait a minute.
It's the Denny motion. Thank you, Ashley. Denny motion.
So you're saying that as part of the investigative efforts, or now is this because he had court-appointed counsel? Because I guess what I'm trying to say is if his defense got a portion of that DNA, which they would be allowed to have for their own expert, they would not be able to say, okay, I guess basically Campbell would not be compelled to give him his DNA for testing. Is that right?
And they, to my knowledge, they simply did not have the funds to hire a PA to collect trash or something from Campbell's.
But also from the standpoint of the amount, even though if police were investigating a case, if I'm understanding this correct, with the standard of what's applied here, that even that for the police to have tested Zach's DNA, right, to get a search warrant, they need they need simply to have probable cause, right? But in order for them to have Campbell, they actually have to go. The defense, in order for the defense to say we'd like to get a sample of Campbell's DNA to rule him out, you're saying that the standard for them to be able to make that request to the court to get a portion of his DNA and then send it to their DNA expert for testing, you're saying it would have to be clear and convincing evidence that Campbell was involved. That's crazy. I mean, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Or was this just an issue that they didn't have funds in order to have a DNA expert, which maybe they were limited in that, but you would have thought that if that the defense would have had access to a DNA expert, that they could have potentially said, "Hey,
but they used the state's DNA expert about that, but these unknown, because they showed with the alleles and stuff. Here are the alleles. Yes, none of them are Zach's. Yes. It doesn't match. And it doesn't match to Rosalio or to his kid.
So it sounds like what they did here was they made it was a strategic issue of saying, as opposed to us testing that and finding out that it's not, we'd rather leave that as an open item. We can argue as a reasonable doubt and say, listen, we don't know. It's not our burden to prove this. It's the state's burden to prove these things. And since we don't know if it's Campbell, if we don't know if it's this person, are you satisfied with convicting Zachariah, knowing that the state failed to test against him? This guy was.
They couldn't even bring up Campbell's name as a third-party culprit. They were not allowed to have a third-party culprit defense.
They were. Well, could they have not brought up the fact though that I guess he couldn't even have been suggested in there.
No.
As far as.
They couldn't name any third-party culprit suspect. They could see there's unknown DNA here, but that's about it.
And that was so in essence they needed to, in order to get to the third-party culprit, they basically had to make the decision of either we test it and find out it's not, and then that just completely blows everything, or we leave it as this is what the state did with it. They didn't go any further with it. It's the state's burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and this is a doubt. How can you have unknown male DNA here in this house? That
on the items that belongs to Rosalio.
Right.
How did it get there? How did it get into the freezer?
Correct. And they didn't. Now, it's not possible that a police officer touched that or something like that. And then, of course, obviously that would be an unknown male.
According to testimony, nobody searched that freezer. It was Rosalio's mother who found the items in the freezer when they released the crime scene.
Gotcha.
So, it is so much. It's a Danny motion. Wisconsin is the only state that uses the Denny standard, and the Supreme Court of the United States have struck down on this practice, but Wisconsin does not apply the Supreme Court decision. They keep the Denny motion.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Thank you, chat. Thank you, chat.
Peter, we are. Steve's going to cover the trial again after. After this.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's something I want to definitely dig into. Like I said,
Yeah.
when normally during Christmas time, trials will start to dissipate, so that might be a good time to.
I also know that
jump
Andrea
into it.
Burkhardt will try to watch the trial as well. I don't know when or where or in what shape or form. And so, yeah, I strongly suggest people to watch that trial again. Maybe now we can. I mean, I've said it all along. I understand how the jury got to the stalking charges. I understand. I don't understand how they got to the murder charges. How they got to murder. I really, really don't. And every attorney I've talked to who have also seen this, and with the knowledge we have now that wasn't brought into trial, they're simply the timeline does not fit, because everything else in this trial is a red herring.
Right.
Everything else here is a red herring. They need those 9 to 14 minutes to fit.
Is there any other time that the defendant's phone is in a dead zone, like it's not active at all?
Not enough time for him to make the trip back and forth from wherever he is.
Could there be the possibility that someone else was in control of that phone at his property?
I mean, theoretically, sure. But it wasn't brought forward by the prosecution.
Because that could then explain.
Yeah. Now, if I were to play devil's advocate, I can make anything fit with statistics. Anything can fit as long as this 9 to 14 minutes, and then you work yourself out of that.
Yep.
But that's not how you're supposed to follow the evidence.
Correct.
They didn't check the landfill. I mean, the murder weapon could have been in that dumpster that was in that landfill.
Yeah, but
I never looked for it.
That's just shocking to me, because most of the time they would go check the landfill and they would want to do those things, which is why it strikes me that this is a case that seems to be ripe under the idea that the authorities were trying to avoid certain areas that they knew could go a certain direction.
They were scared of the result, so they never checked.
The question is, of course, is why, which strikes me that if the booty call, who's part of the court system, somehow was involved in this, and they said, well, we can't go certain areas because it could go down the route that leads her into this, than more than just she was a booty call, that was coming over. I mean, that would be some sort of, because it's just like, why would the police, and that's the thing, why did the police get such an interest in it? And the thing is, like, the landfill would have potentially proven Zach was guilty. So it's like, why would they avoid it?
Know which dumpster went to which space in the landfill to search it? Like, as in, we did the body, the toddler dumped in the trash. Like, they had to work out which company picked up that particular dumpster and which landfill that went to and which layer. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not as easy as just going. That's right. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got to narrow it down somehow.
Now, let me put this up on the screen here. Listen, the issue I have with that explanation, which is nonsensical at all, is if you have a missing body, you turn over authorities should turn over, in most cases, would turn over every single place you could go. Because, I mean, not having a body is a very significant problem that the state has in this case, is there's no body found. So, I mean, the blood and everything would be indicative that he probably is dead, and I'm sure meets whatever standard they had to prove to show that the body was dead, or that this individual was dead, at least to the court. But the state's not
That's never been
normally
put forward.
going to want to proceed in a case where no body's been found, because it's another hurdle that they got to come through. It's another way that that if the defense says, listen, if you can't prove he's dead, you might only prove an assault happened, but if you're charged with unaliving,
I don't think they ever were able to prove he was dead.
well, they had to have been able to some certainty of degree in order to, like,
Never
that's
saw
one of the
anything like that.
well, what I mean is the jury had to have concluded that, because that's one of the elements. The first element is the body, corpus delicti. You have to find that there is a body in the case. In other words, that someone died. So the jury would have inferred from the blood, the lack of cell phone, the lack of the fact he never had contact with family after that in fact he is dead. But the point is, the state, they're still ripe for the idea that, well, maybe he isn't. Maybe he was just assaulted and kidnapped. Maybe he was taken by whatever, and he's somewhere now today, still alive, sitting with whoever his kidnapper was.
Was it 2020? May 19th, 2020? Is that right? 4 years ago?
So it's
4.5 years. I know it was the 19th of May. It's my dad's birthday.
Oh, sorry, I get all these text messages. Okay, can you reiterate the last minute?
Oh, sure.
No, all good.
Yeah, no, yeah. What I was basically saying was that I think Udif had said, because they knew the body had been moved and they only had enough resources to search so many areas, that this was the prosecution's thing. And I was saying that the resources, the lack of we have to use, it would take too many resources. I said, doesn't make sense from the state's perspective, who would have great interest in finding a body, because one of the biggest holes in a case that you don't have a body in is it's an extra hurdle. It's an extra area that you can raise down.
And they did find the resources to search his Zach's dad's property and the tree farm they had.
Well, the point is, Udef, is that you would say that they don't get to say we don't think. When you're investigating a case, as Nick was saying, you don't decide what you don't search. You go search it and then you clear it. And if you haven't got to it, you go back to it. So it's like,
even if no body, the murder weapon or weapons,
the murder weapon, or
the cleanup stuff, anything.
So the point is that in this case,
that's what was in the van. They're saying there was the Clorox wipes were in there, and there was that one trace DNA in the van.
Right.
That was that enough to.
But they didn't know that. They didn't find that spot until months later, after searching the car for several times. Well, and by the way, the same cops who were at the crime scene also went to Zach's place.
So let me ask you this.
What is it to say that it wasn't transferred between crime scenes?
Well, let me ask you this question here. What was the purity of the DNA that was found? In other words, was obviously, if it was months later, there should have been degradation, there should have been signs, it was in the elements. So was this pure? Was this considered to be a minute but pure amount, or was there signs like there should have been that it had sat in the elements?
They could the on cross-examination. The prosecution alluded to it had to be blood, but they never tested the brownish spot, so they can't actually say it is blood. And the trace amount, the state's witness, the crime scene or the lab technician, could not say if it was skin cells, if it was saliva, or if it was blood.
It wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough to determine whatever. It was a trace amount. And since the sample is destroyed, we actually don't know the purity of the sample.
Right, which is so essentially we have no idea based on, well, there's no way to. A lot of times, though, when they look into it, what you're telling me, though, is just from the outset that it is such a small, minute amount that it was not even enough that they could do their normal comparison of how many. Of the likelihood of a match in the billions or trillions. I think they go to 10 billion is the maximum they go to, because they go a little bit above the population of the.
Nothing like that was said.
Nothing like that.
She just said, in my opinion, that was her expert answer.
Gotcha.
And that it was a robust result or something like that. That's the extent of the expert.
Just a little bit.
Now,
Wow. So
I can. Let's see here. Do I still have it here somewhere? Tiffany Roy's. Because Tiffany Roy, in her letter to the Kenosha Crime Lab, her criticism is still not answered. Her complaint.
Oh, is this the
Still not
complaint from
answered.
DOJ?
I think she has tried to contact the DOJ as well regarding this, but the letter to the Kenosha Crime Lab, or the State Crime Lab, is still unanswered. And the witness in this trial is now head of quality control in that lab.
So has Zacharias' appeal been filed yet? Is that anywhere that we can see?
They have filed all the notices for appeal, which allows them to get the transcript. So they have to purchase the transcript.
But they have not actually identified yet their issues of focus that they're focusing
They have
on.
They haven't made the appeal yet, but the appeal notice is filed. They do have some time to conduct everything, and it is attorney Natalie Wisco who is hired for the appeal. And Natalie Wisco is a beast. Good. That is also some of the reasons why this takes time, because she really wants everything, every cross the T and dot the I.
Now, if she were to get this reversed, does she try cases as well, or is she strictly appellate?
She was one of the attorneys in the Rittenhouse case.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. So she is a trial attorney who also does appeals.
But is there enough funding to get her to do the trial, or is this a situation where the funds are limited?
If it gets reversed, I will hold the fundraisers for
getting him the ability to fund the defense. I was going to say, because it's important that if he gets it reversed, you can't go back to public defenders again where they're limited by resources, because it sounds like that was also a hindrance in the case.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, they did the best they could with the resources they had. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, of course, as an on-share coach, they did some mistakes. They could have done other things. They could have focused on more things, maybe have better displays or something like that. But it happened. We have to leave that behind. Now, if in the appeals, they can and should always argue ineffective of counsel. They can and should bring out all the things. The Denny motion fails, in my opinion. The non-collection of evidence, and also the prosecutorial misconduct that I believe happened in this case, and the judge's decision to bring in prior bad acts.
Okay.
And because the judge sometimes went on a 20-minute rant.
Oh my God! You've got no idea.
Oh,
twice, right? Twice.
Yeah.
The state objected to the defense for a leading question, and the judge overruled it, and the defense went, "Judge, it's cross." Oh, that's right. Yes, okay.
Yeah, you're allowed to lead on cross-examination. Twice, and then also the prosecutor Gravely, who has been a prosecutor for over 20 years, claimed that this is that he didn't know about if it was a secondary hearsay. He didn't know that was a thing. Wow. And it's generally not allowed. I don't know the exact...
snitching on snitches.
Yeah, snitching on snitches.
Anytime there's a jailhouse snitch involved in a case, that should put anybody's radar up with a plea deal, because that's so. Is it alleged that Zach confessed to him? Is that what he's saying?
In his sleep he confessed to him.
Die, motherfucker! We must have heard that 20 times repeated.
He was allowed to testify to that.
Yeah. And he testified. I have the prosecution. No, we haven't cut any deals. We can't, because he was Munch was in jail for federal offenses. He had, what was it? 20 kilos of marijuana and another kilo of random drugs.
Gotcha.
And that would have been his third or fourth, so he was facing life in prison if convicted.
He's
And
guess what?
Guess
what?
He didn't get that.
3 months after the sentencing, Munch was a free man.
Wow.
Everything dropped.
Well,
He now lives in Florida, and I'm keeping track of his whereabouts because the moment he commits a new crime,
Did Munch get out
yeah, he's a free man.
for that testimony?
Yeah.
He even the snitched on him told them that he had planned to insert himself into this case and make whatever shit he wanted up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the prosecution was snitch shopping. So they asked other people to snitch on Zach before they found Munch.
They objected so many times to not let
So Zach was in jail for almost 2 years. Keep saying, I'm innocent of this. I didn't do it. But the moment Munch was placed in his cell, all of a sudden confession.
Well, let me ask you this though. Did the defense, they have a right to do this, but did the defense subpoena the jailhouse movements of Munch to show that he was moved into the cell? And that was unusual?
They know he was placed in Zach's cell at one point. Okay. They spent 2 or 3 weeks in the same cell, and then he was moved out. Did they look at
what they should have done was I mean, obviously there's a guy he reports this to. Did they look? The defense should have subpoenaed or asked to see the contacts between that individual and Munch prior to him getting moved into the cell, so they could show the jury that, look, this guy was moved in here for a specific purpose, and he's talking to the police because that contact and the reason why that that's significant. But that's something that they should have absolutely.
Yeah, but they brought in the other jailhouse snitch who the prosecution contacted first, who had stayed with in the vicinity of Zach's cell, and so he testified in court about Munch more or less shouting out, "Oh, I'm going to beat this. I only need somebody to snitch on,"
right,
or something of the sort.
But it took 2 hours to get about 5 sentences out because the state objected non-stop.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they did because they didn't want. They didn't want certain stuff getting out.
So Munch had been in the hole with this other snitch and had bragged, "This is what you do."
And how you go about finding out about the discovery, finding out about the case, so you know enough about the case and able to snitch. Yeah. Wow. That was what Munch was teaching other inmates in jail.
Wow.
And then there was, the mouthing thing. What were you saying? You had new evidence on that where the state were accusing the father.
This was actually in the judge actually brought this up because Law and Crime had cameras on Munch saying, die, motherfucker. Mm-hmm. Hello, Mr. Jingles. And at the meantime, they had a camera on Gravely, who at the same time mimicked die, and then the camera cut off. But he was mouthing it. And he did that with the daughter as well.
Oh, wow.
Mouthing the testimony to the witness.
Why was he doing that?
Because he's a dick.
Well, we would have known if he had recorded his interviews with the witnesses, but as a prosecutor, he didn't. He never records any witness interview.
And the mother was accused of sign languaging the daughter as well while she was on the stand.
Oh, yeah,
so
and the
prosecutor was mouthing to the witness what to say.
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah, and Sadie allegedly made sign languages to her daughter. She claimed, well, I told her to calm down.
Yeah.
And she wasn't really that proficient in sign language. She is certified in sign language.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
yeah, there's so
So,
much.
so Jody,
crap.
you've been
Yes.
watching the case. What is your opinion on it?
Well, I came in, so hang on. Your new evidence on this mouthing of the defendant to the daughter, Nick. You said you had new evidence on what that was about. You know, where he goes like that
Yeah.
to.
This is okay. So this is slightly biased because this is from Solomon, who was in court at the time.
She did used to teach it. Yes, she wasn't certified yet, but she did used to
Oh,
teach
okay.
it.
Thank
That
you.
was the
She
argument.
isn't certified, but she did use
Yeah,
it. Thank you. Again, amazing with the chats. If I get something slightly wrong, please correct me. I don't mind. I love being
Yeah,
corrected.
no, absolutely.
Yeah, go right ahead. Go right ahead. If I don't
We only
agree,
just watched
let's
that
talk about
yesterday,
it.
so that's
Yeah. What happened in court during the daughter's testimony in the breaks, where in the objections or when Judge
talking
went on his
sidebar.
rants, she was leaning over, trying to talk to her dad or whisper to her dad, and
The daughter
that was when Sadie did this. And Zach just, you need to sip it. Don't try to talk to me. And then he did this, which was interpreted by all of
to
media
shut your
as
mouth.
to shut your mouth. It was
Right.
when she was trying to, because she hadn't had contact with her dad for 2 years.
Oh, so she
But
was
she's
trying to
told
talk
by
to
the
her dad
state-
from the witness stand, and he
Yeah.
was basically telling her, "You can't do that. Stop trying
Yeah.
to
She's a
talk.
state witness,
Focus on
though.
testifying."
Yeah. So that is the explanation. Now you can believe it or not,
Okay.
but that is the explanation I've been told from
And
Solomon,
of course, we
who was
can't
in
see
court.
the child or what's happening at the moment he's doing that because
No cameras on the kid.
The cameras were on the kid. It was just her voice. Okay,
Yeah.
I got you.
So
So
I
what is
came
your
into the case
right?
only watching the police interview with the defendant, and when I started streaming the trial, I made the comment in my introduction saying, "Well, the state better bring it because, in my opinion, so far as what I've seen, he seems really credible, and but I'm going in with an open mind." I think it took them about 9 days before they actually presented anything that was of any value. And my attention went to, because I'd heard that everyone was calling Sadie Shady Sadie. So my expectation was completely different to what I saw and interpreted her on the stand. I think that she did come across as really credible in direct. Yes, I think she got a little bit frustrated in cross, but I could also see why she was getting frustrated, because she's trying to explain how she's being stalked by this person, and there was evidence of phones being put in cars, under seats, in air conditioners, and him texting her exactly what had just previously been said between her and Rosario in her home by Zach. And there was a few voice messages or something that they'd presented in trial from him, the way he was speaking to her. So for me, I sort of felt after that testimony and after the daughter's testimony that the stalking charges had sort of been, in my mind, established beyond reasonable. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's how I interpreted it. What I couldn't get past was I don't believe the state at all met their burden whatsoever. And there was tons of circumstantial evidence, but I couldn't get past how they got the body from outside of from inside the apartment and into the car with no blood trail and no drag marks, nothing. And my brain works differently than everyone else's. I have a limited upper body strength, so I modify or adapt to use other items able to lift heavier objects. So when the daughter explained that when she went downstairs to the basement with the brother and saw that there was a wheelie stool there with rope and duct tape on it, that suggested to me that could have been an option where Zach didn't have to lift this body up too high. It was a lower level, and it could have facilitated an easier way and a quicker way to have moved a body from that glass sliding door down the grass and into the back of the, you know what I mean? In the middle of the night, it would have taken 30 seconds. Bang, bang. Particularly when I saw that the evidence of the handle, the steel handle that he had purchased, that you could have tied rope into at either end, one end to the head and one end to the feet, which then would have allowed you to pull it together with the handle in the middle and elevate either side. So that would then account for the no dragging. So then I don't know how that's impossible to have been done in the 14 minutes, because there's too much work that needs to be done to make that liquid proof. That's when I thought, well, maybe there is another time period. So perhaps that the attack could have happened in that 14 minutes and then left locked up back at home by 11:10, and then another time in the next 24 hours that the body could have been moved back then, because he could have taken his time then and wrapped it all up and sealed it and done it. But
yeah, but
that,
also I
can't prove it, so
no, that's not the state's case either, because of the day after up until his arrest, another second day, they don't have that where he is, because he's with his phone or with his somebody somewhere doing work or whatever. So they didn't have that. If they had, now this wasn't presented,
so
but I assume they checked his phone for his whereabouts from the day before up until his arrest, and this was the only block of time he had the opportunity to be at Rosalio's place.
So is there a possibility that someone was at his home that night and at 11:10 could have used his phone?
Well, according to the texts or calls, he did make the call to his girlfriend, or text to his girlfriend. Could somebody, but to my knowledge, he was alone in the house. So, and I do know there's been some theory, well, maybe his brother had something, but his brother was cleared of everything. There's no possible way his brother had anything to do with anything in concealing or anything.
Suspect, was he?
He was never a suspect.
No, I didn't think so.
No, but the theory among people who believe of Zach's guilt, Solomon, among people who believe, well, this might have happened, but no, he was never a suspect, completely cleared. Yep. They checked all the whereabouts of the family has been accounted for.
Joe, did you want to play your the video you came up with?
Yeah.
All
right, I have 10 minutes. Then I must bugger off because
no problem.
No worries.
All right.
So
and
this is just I put together from.
This is what I believe influenced this jury.
Look how
the
young I am.
baseline has changed
Look how I've aged
months ago.
in a
the
year
last
and a
couple of
half
decades.
through the YSL case.
From he is innocent
Hold on, wait a minute.
Stop that.
Sorry.
and
Here
So
we go.
this is your
this is
reaction
what I believe
an hour after the
influenced this
sentencing,
jury.
or-
Yeah, an hour
And
after the
the
verdict.
baseline has changed the last couple of decades. From he is innocent until proven otherwise to that be the same words means he's
presumption of
probably
innocence. Yeah.
innocent until proven guilty. Somewhere in there, this baseline, it's still there. What that actually means. And in the Zachariah Anderson trial, for me, the prosecution was nowhere near
No, I agree.
convincing for me, that the evidence pointed beyond a reasonable doubt. One thing I believe was standing out among the witnesses, and that was not the shady friends, it was not Sadie, it was not the prison snitch, it was the daughter, her testimony. That, I believe, was the one thing that convinced the jury. And some of you have seen it, most of you probably haven't, and it is the environment
Oh, well, you can
the
skip
daughter
because
has been in the last few years.
yeah, because that
Yeah.
was shown to be the mother.
This
Yeah,
Yeah,
is
I was
Sadie
wrong.
Beecham's
That
car.
is not Sadie's car.
Outside of
That
the
is the
courtroom.
mother's car.
so you can.
This
Also, I was
is
wrong there. I do believe I retracted that
what
in a later
the
video.
daughter has been raised in since she was 12.
She should never have been put through any of this.
No.
Sadie Beecham knew Mr. Guterres for less than 3 months. She honestly believed, in my opinion, that they had a relationship. And nothing can probably sway her from thinking otherwise. Not the fact that Mr. Guterres was trying to hook up with at least 2 other women during the time Sadie Beecham thought she and Mr. Guterres had a relationship. Again, I don't believe for a second that things happened the way the prosecution claimed. That Mr. Anderson was in some form of ambush around 9:37 at night.
So you don't
Because
believe that?
If you remember the Murdoch trial,
simply,
they claimed that
the timeline doesn't fit because
the phone
the 9 to 14
in
minutes
evidence
is
of
including him hiding in ambush.
both
Okay.
the wife and the son being dead. But you have to understand that Mr. Guterres didn't answer from 9:08
8,
to 9:37.
which extends the
There's a
timeline
hole
then.
in the prosecution's argument. They claim Mr. Guterres was killed between 9:37 and 10.
Since
So it could
then,
have been
that-
from 9:08.
Does not reflect
yeah,
the evidence.
yeah.
Because if you
Since
believe
then,
that the phone
evidence
being
that has been brought
unanswered
forward brings it down to an
at
even shorter time
9:37,
span.
that also
for
must mean
Zach to be able to do
that
it.
he might have been killed before 9:37, between 9:08 and 9:37. And if that is a possibility, a probability, then there is no way Mr. Anderson could have gone from his house to Mr. Guterres' house. The way the prosecution put up the closing argument, it is only
That shirt
possible
doesn't fit anymore,
that
by
Mr.
the way.
Guterres was killed between 9:37 and 10. That's the only way it fits. And the only way it fits is for the jury to disregard Mr. Anderson's back problem, to disregard the absolute lack of evidence. And now I don't mean testimonial evidence, I mean physical evidence. There are no drag marks in the apartment. There are no driplets moving from the apartment and outside. Nothing. This means that Mr. Anderson not only managed to roll Mr. Guterres into this supposed rug, he also had to cover every part of that rug from driplets with rope and duct tape.
And now maybe
Lifting him up and somehow managed to lift Mr. Guterres, between 250 and a 270-pound man, in a way that didn't shape a banana form. Because if you lifted him in this over the shoulder, you have two exits. He has to have lifted him in a way that put the ends up to avoid driplets moving from the apartment and out.
Okay.
This is the daughter's testimony.
Because I got you all set for
Why
school.
can't I've got no sound on that.
Yeah. But this is a new version of events that wasn't in the first
I'm now showing you what's been
interview or
marked as State's
deposition.
Exhibit 318.
So this is the item that he bought off Amazon.
There we go.
Given the description as read out loud in court of double D handle,
that
cable
one.
attachment, non-stick.
Yeah.
Is this?
Yeah,
appears to
that's
be
a
the
double
item that was
hander
ordered on that
where
day
you
for the
attach a
president.
rope to carry things.
Handle.
So yeah, I understand what you mean.
Okay, right. So that, my friends, see the hole in the bottom here? That's where the rope goes in. Yeah? Tied to one end to the head, one end to the feet, and you have yourself a handle in the middle there that keeps them elevated whilst you're pushing a body on a stool.
Yeah, but again,
That was me live while I
yeah, but again, there's no marks of it because then you have a 270-pound man dragged on a rolling stool. There are no marks from rolling stools either. And then again, the time for all of that to happen just doesn't fit into that narrow window of time.
Even if it was from 9:08.
Well, if it was from 9:08, then it couldn't have been Zach because the earliest time he could have been there was 9:37.
But then wouldn't he have had to just on this theory you have, Jody? He would have had to gone out to his van. He would have had to have gotten the body, wrapped it up in duct tape, wrapped it in rope, tied it up, attached those things to it, and got it out. But he only had 9 to 14 minutes to do it.
That's why I thought there could have been two potential.
Yeah, and I agree that it makes more sense with two people. I just don't think Zach was either of them.
Well, it does, and like I said, I think it makes sense. If I'm finding two people there, it would end. I mean, when you look at the scene, if what I read was correct, that and heard was that there was a half drink bottle of water,
Yep.
There was 2 used Coronas, 1 drank, 1 not. There was limes being cut. That would indicate that the date that was supposed to have occurred, and that she wasn't at the wrong apartment, and that all of that's hogwash and rubbish. Why would she be at the wrong apartment? Why would she not have attempted to go up and knock on the door? Who in the world sits
Yeah.
out in front of an apartment for
Well,
45 minutes? That doesn't
Someone
make
who's
sense.
been in a dry spell for a while.
Well, I'm just saying. So that would indicate that she goes in and something happens. Now, what happens next? Does Campbell show up to collect money and they get into a fight and she's present for it and then gets somehow threatened into participating in cleaning up?
Yeah. There's
Does-
so many holes that you could
Does
go
she
down.
have a jealous person who followed her
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
comes in and now they get the body out, they wrap it in a rug, she helps them carry it out, and they have the time to actually secure the body so that, because clearly what we know, again, we have to go with what we know. We know there's not a body in the apartment.
Yeah.
We know it left, and we know there's no traces of it leaving. So what we know is someone did that. Someone secured the body in such a way. That is a fact that is clear. How it was done, we don't know. But we know it happened. So now the question is, could that have even been possible in the amount of time that Zachariah Sanderson would have had? And the answer to that is more likely than not. And the question is, why would his defense have not got a crime scene reconstructionist to come in and say what he is supposed to have had to have done in the period of time that in order to do this in a way, looking at the crime scene, looking at the blood droplets, looking at where blood was found and wasn't found, it would have taken 45 minutes. It would have taken 2 hours and put that in front of the jury. I mean,
but if there are no I mean, that might be, I mean, it's a good theory. I have another one for you.
Sure.
Yeah. You see the blood pooling where he was. You see blood on the floor. There's no drag marks. There's no driplets.
Right.
What if Rosalia was still alive? It was a big crushing head wound. Wrapped in a towel, they let him out.
Right, yeah. That's true too, yeah.
And somewhere Rosalia's body is buried. Because he owed some suspicious people money.
Right. And what if she was somehow involved in that at some level of or witnessed something and ran off and doesn't want to say that? You know, in other words,
a witness that said they saw a white woman with dark hair on the 18th on
the
his
18th.
veranda.
On his veranda, yeah.
Okay.
And
the day after.
Does that fit her description?
No.
Well, white woman with dark hair can also, because at a distance could have been a
Latino woman.
light Latino with dark hair, and that fits both Sadie and that other witness.
Gotcha. And would Sadie have had any motive to kill him? Was there any? Was that
if she found that he was shagging someone else?
That's a possibility too. Yes, she came in and
she could have turned up while she was waiting there.
Does she have family members or brothers or anything that would help her?
Well,
going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's a rabbit hole of its own. And I had Sadie in my chat last year, and we got into an argument of sorts because I just said to her, "You're a bad mom." And much other things. I might have been I might have been really drunk at the time as well, because the wheel of regrets was in play. I had a few shots and a few beers, and I went on town with and she hasn't returned yet.
What? I can't even get the words out. So hang on. Let me just add this to the screen because this is Sadie. I don't call her a white woman.
You called the daycare and you were nervous about your kids, correct?
No, but from a distance, it could be.
Because you thought Mr. Anderson might go to the daycare.
I mean, you'd have to think of the idea in it from a distance. You know what I mean? That.
So why was she
could very well. You know, that it could be mistaken from a distance. I mean, you know, because if someone's just looking and they just glance and say, "Oh, it's a dark," she's not definitively.
Yeah.
I have his Facebook date. This is one of the females. This is not the witness.
That was another chick.
That was. Let's see who else.
Okay, well that could fit the description of a white woman. Was that the one that was the booty call?
Let's see here. Let's see the description.
She the one that waited in the car?
Let's see. That is.
Is that Miss C?
That is my Miss Machen. She is a subpoena clerk at Milwaukee County DA's office.
Okay.
What about Sadie and her bestie? Could they have done it?
Well, you have that interesting text from Sadie's best friend to Sadie that says, "It will happen in a week. You will never know. You won't know when it happens."
Going to Maine.
And exactly a week later,
yeah,
Rosalio is gone.
It was bizarre. It was really cryptic and
what? Really?
Shit. Yeah.
So has anyone explored the possibility that that this was a situation where Sadie decided this could knock out two birds with one stone? We get rid of Rosario, we frame him, and I solve all my problems. I get rid of my scoundrel boyfriend who's cheating on me that I thought I was going to give my life to. I get rid of Zachariah because he goes to prison, and I get my kids all to myself. I mean, is that a possibility that she could have concocted that with someone? I mean, did they look deep into that person?
Was there any evidence on her phone records? Did they do a phone extraction?
Nope.
Like, was there any calls after that said, "Hey, it's done," or anything like that? No.
Nope. Just that interesting.
He found the crime scene.
Yeah, it will. Just that it will happen in a week, and I believe Sadie deleted that message from her phone, but they found it on the friend's phone.
And why were they looking into the friend? Like, why were they doing phone dumps of her phone?
Probably they did it to exclude, and somehow they found this instead.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
And then, well, see, that's what I'm like. That's weird to me because if they're
the messaging was between Sadie and Rosalio. Hers was deleted. His wasn't.
Oh, I see. It was to Rosalio.
Yeah, so it's me misremembering here. This text messages that was from the friend to Sadie was still on Sadie's phone.
I got you. Now, now let me ask you this question: has anyone looked at the potential here? Which, of course, it really doesn't make sense that Rosalio would have his booty call going on, but that somehow they were trying to lure Zacharias to this apartment, and it just went sideways, and Zach fought back, and then him and Sadie
using his own tracking against him.
Yeah, using his own tracking against him and baited him there, thinking they were going to assault Zacharias. And the next thing you know, there's a struggle, and then Sadie shows up, and Zach kills him, and then Sadie and Zach are working together, and now Sadie turns on Zach. Is there any possibility that something?
No, there's no such communications because they seized Zach's phone, his laptop, his computer, and went through everything. There is no such a thing.
No such thing
there.
even possible. Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Well, Nick, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all this with us. I'm definitely going to look at the case. I mean, this definitely, like I said, I've heard a lot about it. I've had a lot of people come in. I've gotten emails and said, "Hey, look into this. This is a guy that there's definitely." It sounds like something there that needs to be looked at.
You are just gonna the trial. You're just gonna shake your head.
Yeah, and for the people who want to know, because you have the free ZachariahAnderson.org,
free
which has Zach's case, the incident, cast of characters, the timeline, the investigation, official evidence, unseen evidence, and then watch the media, watch the trial. Because up until this trial, Zach's image as a person of interest was plastered in local media. We want to find out more about this person of interest in the disappearance of Rosalio Gutierrez, plastered all over media leading up to the trials. And then, of course, as trial approaches, there's a gag order.
How do you get a fair trial if that's...
Yeah. So, yeah.
I dropped a link to it in there in the chat.
Thank you.
There
Thank
it is.
you. Yeah.
Free Zacharias. I'm going to check it out myself. It sounds like it's something that, you know.
Ashley 3 is in chat before, is the author of that podcast, the Wrongful podcast.
Okay. I want to check that out as well.
Yeah. And then also Law Kong, he thinks differently than anybody I've ever seen checking out this case. Mm-hmm. He finds angles I didn't know were possible.
That's what I do.
Yeah. So those are really interesting. Now, some might be a bit off, but others are spot on.
And who is this now?
Law Kong, L-A-W Kong.
Law Kong.
On YouTube.
Okay.
Law Kong,
yeah. He was in chat. There he is.
Yeah, right there he is.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check
him out. Yeah.
Oh, Law Kong Express. I see it there. Okay, good. I'll go to his channel right now. Get subscribed here.
Okay. Yeah, so there's so much more in this case about the tracker that he allegedly ordered. They found it unopened at home. And then you have his prior things where he, in order to make money, he drove cannabis from one place to another. And of course, you put trackers on it just in case somebody tries to. Well, the person in the one end wants to know it arrives at the person in the other end. So of course there's trackers involved.
So you're saying Zacharias Anderson drove cannabis to people or whatever?
He was growing it on a farm with his family.
Okay.
Hydroponically.
Yeah. And they're also interesting with the daughter's testimony that she could identify exactly 72 plants, how it was grown, everything. And then they showed her a picture.
They showed her the dried buds and she couldn't pick it.
Yeah. She asked on the stand, "What's that?"
Yeah. But in all honesty, they do look a lot different growing on a plant and dried.
Yeah. But everybody, I tell this all the time. Don't take my word for this. Go check out the trial. Go check out the Free Zachariah. As Solomon says, they try to make it presented objectively on the website, just to make people check it out and make up your own mind.
Your own mind.
Yeah. Now I have to bugger off, and
thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for coming on. I appreciate all of the information. And
I have been watching you for a couple of years. Long time subscriber.
Now I'm just trying to find one thing here. Where is it? Oh, there it is. That if you wouldn't mind to play this as my outro.
Sure.
No worries.
If you can just bring it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And here we go.
In a snowy land where the dragons once roamed, a Viking and a cat make a cheerful home. Mr. Jingle purrs as he hangs the lights so bright. Together they bring warmth to a frosty night. Garlands wrapped around the many wood beams, Viking runs all tunes while Mr. Jingle dreams. Wreaths and ribbons, all the colors do explode. A Norse Yuletide tale that will soon unfold. With a yell and a roar they spread the cheer, decking halls with hopes for a brand new year. Mr. Jingle pumps his while the Viking claps. Christmas magic happens in their cozy laps.
go to Suno.
Yep. Yep.
What is it?
Yep.
The
That's
song for this
awesome.
podcast is on there. That's where I created it.
Okay.
Yep.
No, sorry.
No, what is the site you use for that? That was awesome.
Suno.com.
Suno.com. AI music maker.
Mhm.
An AI
Oh,
music
okay.
maker.
Suno
Right.
as in SUNO.
SUNO.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have this
check it out.
free thing where you can create 2 or 3 songs per day, but I have the subscription, so
Gotcha.
I have way too much fun with that, and sometimes it gets me into trouble, especially regarding the YSL trial when I make songs about the prosecutors and some
I
of
have
the witnesses.
sat verdict watch and gotten words from the chat and built a song.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Give me the words. Get me a style of music,
I've
and
got a
it's
song
always
that's like
rap
Tucker.
because they know it gets me into trouble. And yeah,
I try
but
and make
everybody,
that
yeah,
very brief.
thank you for having me on. I need to do an off-eye fuck motion, and
Oh, you're the one that taught me the word clusterfuck.
available in my merch store. This is my channel's motto. You can't un-F a cluster F.
Yeah,
All right.
when I opened my channel, I used a couple of those one-liners. So thank
All
you.
right. Yeah, but yeah, I have to bugger off.
All right.
Okay.
Lovely.
But thank you for the invite. Thank you for the discussion.
Welcome.
Everybody,
Thank
make up your own mind. Have fun watching the entire trial. Enjoy the judges' 20 to 30-minute rants and that high-pitched prosecutor voice.
Oh my God, inside voice.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. See you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will, for those who wonder, where can we see you next, Nick? Well, Dave's Lego Law channel. They are having their season's finale, and I will be on that one. All right. Now I'm done. Okay, now I have to bugger off. Okay. Thank you again. See ya. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right. Well, that was he is. I like him. He brings some good perspective to things, and I'm gonna definitely have to look into the case because this is
for sure
an interesting interesting case.
Don't binge it like I did and try and squeeze 2 or 3 into it.
No, I figure what I'll do is, I mean, normally if I take on a case like that where I'm going to watch it, I'll just present it.
It's actually one that would be better done as a video because the amount of argument time and bickering between both, and then the judge fuddly-duddle and he'll go, oh, that's right, it's under this book here. Let me look up the law. That's right, the jury. Yes. Now you need to know that under this law, that's why they're saying this is a definition of hearsay. Yeah. Cut it down.
Cut it down and just get to the
Start at day 9.
Well, one thing that I'll do sometimes if I'm watching a trial, if I'm trying to do it like a juror, if it's something that happens outside the presence of the jury, I will just fast forward through it because if the jury didn't see it
many times.
If the jury doesn't see it, I don't see it. Now, if I'm interested in looking to say, was there something that happened in this case that was a little odd or off, then I'm going to want to watch all of it because I'm going to see those discussions. But if I'm trying to assess, do I agree with the jury's verdict? If I allow myself to see this outside stuff, sometimes there's outside testimony, there's outside evidence. So
apparently there's a lot of stuff that didn't come in.
A lot of times when I'm going, now if I'm watching a live trial, I have no choice, or I just get up and go, do something else until the jury comes back in, then I run the risk of missing the jury of coming back. So a lot of times I'll just sit there and it's just, I'm not going to be a truly unbiased 13th juror because I'm going to have seen the excluded testimony. I'm going to have seen the record that was made for appeal when they talk about stuff that we're not supposed to know about, just like in the Ferris case. We all know about the polygraph failure, but the jury didn't. So, that's a huge factor when you're assessing that case and you're looking at it and you go, wow, that's knowledge that affects our assessment of the case, which
What
might
did
be
you
why.
think about her statement?
I mean, that was unbelievable. I believe her statement.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
I
do I.
believe it. I think it's credible.
100%.
I think it makes more sense than anything in this case.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, her, were her and Big Daddy, did they get
Last week
along?
was a big week. This for this year.
It was. Yes, it was.
Massive.
But I was moved by her statement. I really
Yes.
was. I
Yep.
thought
Mhm.
the reaction
Why
of her
didn't she testify?
son.
Why?
Well, she talked about that. That's what she was saying at the beginning. She said her mother told her, "You don't accuse your son. You take the blame." So she was
Mother, yeah.
conflicted. So
I get
she
it.
chose. I'm sure what she said is if it's
The truth will come out.
if it's absolutely if you think we're losing, I'll testify. And I think her attorney said, Melody, I think we've raised a lot of reasonable doubt. We're going to close strong in this case. If you get up on the stand, you're going to distract the jury, but of course it's her decision. And you saw what they did. A lot of the theatrics with the bags of fertilizer and all that stuff, and the jury obviously was very conflicted. But as all jurors do in that case, they ignored the body moving. Just like in this case, everyone's like, "Well, how do you get the body?" The jury said, just like
Explained everything.
Well, just like the juror said in there is like, we don't have to answer that question because they don't. The question is, did she kill him? So if they believe she shot him, how the body got to the burn pit doesn't matter. If you believe Zachariah killed him,
that juror said it doesn't matter where she
well,
killed him.
well, really, that was my point. Was it doesn't matter. Like the fact that it is such a problem means we know it happened and we know it occurred and we know there was no evidence. So if there's proof that he did it at the moment that he's standing there in the apartment and did this, then but in this case, it doesn't sound like there is. It sounds like there's a lot of problems with different stuff.
And what about Ashley?
Ashley Benefield? Yeah, I know that was tragic as well, because I think that I
would actually like to do a comparison between her and Sarah Boone on the battered wife syndrome.
Well, I think
how she
that
didn't get it, I don't know.
Well, are you talking about Benefield? Why Benefield didn't get it?
Yeah, she didn't get it.
Well, she couldn't get it because this was explained during the trial itself. One of the issues at hand that comes into play when you're doing battered wife syndrome is they have to be living together. And she wasn't living together with him at the time leading up to it. So that's a factor. Because it's got to be a course of conduct. In other words,
so you can't be abused over the phone or via text messages.
That not to meet the level of battered spouses. Remember, as I explained to you, it's a pattern of behavior that's recognized that then tricks in and says, basically, it modifies the self-defense law. So normally, self-defense is force meets force. All battered spouse is it's saying that her perception of force changed. So when he starts again, like I was giving the example, if say every time he would get upset, it would be because he would start making a comment about something that wasn't done around the house. And then he would immediately start complaining and raising his voice. And then once that happened, he would go find something and throw it against the wall. And then at that point, he'd start moving in her direction.
All those protective orders and the gunshot to the room.
That's not battered spouse. Again, this is what you have to get. You have to look at it from the framework of battered spouse deals with the self-defense. It deals with whether or not it's considered self-defense. Says if you and I got into a fight, and I'm punching you, and you get a gun out and shoot me, that would not be saying, well, that would make sense that you would pull a gun out in a fist fight, because unless you could show that somehow, in your opinion, or somehow in your mind
You feared.
that you feared, because normally I would go from punching you to strangling you,
Yep.
and several times in your lifetime I've done it. So for you, the punch begins the part that says, yeah, while me punching you in the face and you just shoot me would absolutely fit the bill of manslaughter, because that's that you overuse force in that instance.
Yep.
But if my punch of you in your mind triggers the trauma of past beatings and past times that I beat you down and strangled you, and
But
then
it doesn't necessarily have to be physical
what's that?
to be abusive.
Well, no, it
The
has
pattern
to.
of abuse, yeah.
No, it has to be an act committed that starts the sequencing of events that leads to the abuse
Yeah.
that would then lead to the deadly force. So it's got to lead to the deadly force. So her not living with him, okay, for breaks the cycle, breaks basically the ability for her to argue, to say we've been living together, and what it's meant to deal with, what battered spouse is meant to deal with, is the acceleration of violence in a relationship to where
Yeah.
he feels she can't get out. Since they're living separate, by very definition, she's out of the situation. She's not living with the guy. She has a choice to not be with him, but he comes over. Now, the defense was arguing like a modified, they were allowed to argue like a modified version of it. And that's why the jury ultimately got to the manslaughter, because it negated the top charge, but it brought her down to that. Now, in this case, I think that the idea here was of course you have to understand that the state's argument in this case was that she was trying to essentially use, because they said, remember, she was that she had histrionics behavior disorder. So in other words, she would blow things up. So what they were trying to do was, which I thought was really terrible, but it was like she sees, instead of seeing this as a pattern of abuse from when she was living together, which is a way you could tie that in potentially, but it wasn't automatic. He had to show the causal links to how this would be, and to make sure that she invites him in, and was there any other path out of the room? Was there a way away from this situation? That
They did show that though at the end
what's that?
when she moved.
Well, no, but the problem that the defense runs into is normally in battered spouse, it's the idea that she had no other way to get it. You're living with this person, you're trapped in this relationship, and they begin these things that she had no choice, she had no means, you have no way to get away from it. And in her mind, he's going to kill me one day, and this is going to happen. Once they separated and they're living in even though they're not necessarily in two separate, once she's out, that was the prosecution's argument, and that was the way that why they said, well, it's not a full battered spouse. Basically, you're going to have to argue that the defense is going to have to go and show the extra part to say, okay,
that's why they brought all those text messages in.
What right that they can show there's an intervening, that there was an intervening situation here that says, okay, listen, she got out of the situation. Now she's just now just because he abused her previously doesn't give her a right to invite him into her home and shoot him. So the fact that she invites him into her home lets him start
did she
moving.
though? I don't think she did.
No,
he insisted to help her move.
But he doesn't have
rented the house behind her.
Yeah, but he doesn't have a right to be there without her allowing him to be there. And that was what the state was arguing was that she felt was that they felt that she basically decided, you know what? I'm tired of fighting him in court. I'm tired of dealing with this. I want my child to myself.
She was trying to play the game and keep it calm.
Well, except that, if he had broke into the house and was coming at her, that's a totally different story. But the fact that she invited him in and allowed him to come,
he escalated.
That does not trigger the battered spouse in the eyes of the law.
And prevented her from leaving and blocked her from the door.
Well, now at that moment, that's what the defense was going to argue, was that this had that he starts this and it kicks in, but it's not a guaranteed. It's not. she's got to prove to it opens up the argument to say, well, from the state's perspective, to say, well, wait a minute, this was her setting things up. Why did she let him come into the house? Why did she allow him? Did she set him up so that, because again, remember, one of the places was that she had the gun readily available. She's packing up and the gun's sitting right over there. So did she bait him into a situation where she brings him in and says, you know what, you're never coming to Maryland with me. I'm shooting you. And boom, and then I'll claim battered spouse. And that's what the state's, of course, alleging here. And it's kind of I guess, in a sense, a distasteful argument. But what they were basically what they were using was the idea that she runs off to Florida. She has this, which never made sense to me. That's where things didn't make sense to me. It's like,
They used her amenability against her.
Well, why would she want to have a child with him and then just run off to Florida? I mean, that makes no sense to me.
No, he couldn't. She was very sick with it, and he said, "Go and live with your mother because I can't deal with you."
Mm-hmm. Well, no, what I mean is, well, no, but see, the state tells the story differently, that she was making that up. Remember, that she was making it up, that they weren't getting along, and that she left, and then he goes and gets a lawyer, and he didn't want her to leave. And she drops him off because he was expecting her to just stay temporarily with her mom and then come back home. It was never agreed that she was leaving and going to have the child down in Florida. He was dropping her off, and that's what the state was saying, was like, he was actually caring about her. So, and he said, listen, go down, be with your mom. That way she can give you the care. Because I guess he was thinking this was like some sort of early stage of pregnancy. And then she gets down there, and then she claims that he was like sending her, like trying to poison her and kill her and do all this stuff. And that's what they used to say she was suffering from histrionics, whatever disorder, saying that none of this made any sense, because once they went and tested this stuff and did this, it was like, no, she's just like went in, got this guy. I guess essentially what the state's argument in this case was when she first got with him, she saw money and she saw a ballet. And when the money dried up and she has a kid with him, and at first she's thinking, yeah, I'll have a kid with him because he's got money, he's got resources, and now I'll link myself to him. Then she realizes, oh shit, he doesn't have money. The ballet goes up in smoke. The finances go up in smoke. Now he's an annoying old man. Now it's like, what the hell have I got myself into? Now I'm pregnant with this guy's child. And she starts treating him, he's got the daughter, and she starts provoking him. And if you look at some of the messages, the state's idea was, well, hey, she's provoking him with stuff about his daughter, and he's doing crazy shit. He punches the dog, he shoots the thing, but then she gets away from him. She goes to Florida, she leaves. And then she starts trying to paint him like he's this bad guy because he tries to come back into the life of the daughter. And she basically got buyer's remorse on him. She's upset. She realizes he's not the rich, successful businessman that she thought she was getting. And as a result, he, of course, says, no, that's my child. You're not leaving town with it. I'm coming down. Now, of course, the defensive thing is, no, he decides he wants to use the child as a means to control her, because all he cared about was controlling her. He was abusive. He was this. He was that. So then they show up down in Florida. He gets a lawyer, and he says, I'm not an abusive guy. I mean, I wasn't a great husband. I made some mistakes, but she tried. But he's telling the story. She tried to provoke me.
Is that the lawyer they impeached?
That's the lawyer that represented him that they brought on the stand. And then they come down, and of course the theory in this case becomes that there was going to be this announcement, there was going to be this ruling that was going to go against her. But of course they show and they bring it in, and the judge limited the JA, or the judicial assistant of that judge, to say that ruling wasn't going to be made that day, and they had no idea when it was going to be made. So any idea that caused this crime is ridiculous. But that never got before the jury. So the jury's left with the impression that it looks like she's down here. She tries to get him arrested. She tries to do everything she can to put him in a position that he will not have custody of this daughter. And then she eventually falls back on, you know what? Okay, I'll try to play the game where we're trying to work together. But ultimately, she's hoping that this court ruling that this court is going to rule that he's abusive and he doesn't get custody, and she's going to have sole custody of the child. And then basically what she's saying is, I guess she gets wind that this might not go her way. And then she says, you know what, he's never making it to Maryland, invites him over and shoots him, sends the mom, says, take the daughter to the park. Now, again, I don't think it makes sense, because I think when you look at the DNA evidence that was found on her that wasn't allowed to come in, I think the guy was a bad apple. I think he was a bad husband. I think that there was probably a mix of maybe her over-exaggerating some things. But I think ultimately this was his MO. And I think what happened was as they got to that point where they're packing up and he starts pushing the envelope like, I can't wait till we get there. And she says, you know what?
That's where he realizes that he's lost control because she's
We got to
leaving.
talk. And he gets
That's his
upset.
trigger.
And then he goes into the whole thing where, you know, and again, this is why it was crazy to me. It's like, he fired guns. He did this. He did these things. So as he's moving around the house, does she, you know, does he know where the gun is? Has he seen where it's at? Is he moving towards that? She grabs it and shoots him, and they're struggling. And, you know, to me, I thought it was a situation where I feel like the judge should have downward departed. That's what I think. That's how I think this case should have worked out.
I've not heard that terminology before, Ty, and now I've heard it 3 times this week.
Oh, it goes on all the time in Florida. It's a huge
3 times this week.
Yep. Well, it's a big thing in Florida because Florida allows for. It's really.
I thought the judge, when he was reading out the conditions for meeting that criteria, I was under the impression that he was saying she met that, she met that, she met that, she met that, and then canned it.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing: you can meet it, but here's the overriding way a judge gets around it. If you say, okay, she meets it, but the overall impact of how that this crime was committed and he lost his life and he impacted the victims, and that overrides the impact of the downward departure. Meaning, I can't unsee that. So I'm going to deny the downward departure.
Even though she
thought, correct. Well, I thought that, remember, the judge didn't just not give her the downward departure. The pre-sentence investigation called for 10 years and 4 months of incarceration.
Yeah.
He doubled it. And I figured that's what he was going to do, because I thought, well, that's just how he came across in this case, but he doubled it.
Yeah,
so
we looked up the sentencing laws.
So again, like I said, I mean, these judges down in Florida, they don't ever. Actually, I should. In the Ty Tucker case, the fact that he got a downward departure to the degree that he did.
That's what I was saying to Nick before you came on.
With absolutely no hearing, no showing of facts, nothing to support it, was the loudest proclamation of his innocence that could have been made, because it's just unheard of that happens, and it's
be interesting to get his opinion on that. Show him what the actual plea deal was, and what the charges were, and what they left with.
I mean, it's a very like I said. I mean, it speaks. The plea deal itself speaks for itself.
Oh, for sure. 910 days for a felony. No contest felony. Yeah.
I mean, it's, but she's lucky because the judge could have also gone above it. Like in Florida, the judge actually can go above the sentencing guidelines. That young man, Pearson, he was facing 30 years, right? And the judge chose on that charge alone, and then he had other charges that could have been stacked. And that judge said, "We're not stopping at 30. We're going to life," which the judge has the ability to do.
Didn't she get 20 plus 5 for?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah,
but I thought the 5 was concurrent.
No. There was concurrent, but then there was another one on top of that.
Was it? Okay. I thought I thought it was just 20 in total.
No.
Which means because a firearm was used. Well, here's the thing. I believe because a firearm was used, she's got to serve a minimum of 85% of that sentence. So that was also because he made that finding that a firearm was used.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, yeah.
but look, she's got a very strong appeal case that I
Yeah.
think is going to go up, and I think you heard her attorney up making some of the arguments. I think it'll
Well,
be. I
he
think that
needed to
case
get
will
all
be
that
kicked back
down on the
in.
record, didn't he?
Oh, well, he did, and you could tell the judge was uncomfortable because he was like, "Really? In the closing
Everyone was
argument,
saying,
I did all that."
shut up, you're making it worse. And I'm like, he needs to get it on the record.
Well, I think he knew at that point that judge was going to throw the book at her regardless.
Yeah.
But I mean, they didn't. I mean, I don't think there was any chance that judge was going to downward depart. I thought he might have just given the mandated sentence by probation, but then when he doubled that, I was like, wow, okay, he is coming at it.
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, it's just because there should have been an acknowledgement of the abuse. I mean, that he
Yes.
suffered, and that's
Yes.
how you deal with that. 10 years, but to lock her up for 25 is crazy.
Because she lost the battered spouse at the hearing prior to the trial. She couldn't use that defense. It's been a very, very big week this week with
It has.
everything that's gone on.
It has. It's been a very big
compare
week.
it to Sarah Boone. What did she get? She got life, didn't she? Sarah.
Sarah Boone did, yes. Yep.
Yeah. And in Florida, that's life without parole. Standard.
Yep.
Isn't it?
No, yeah. He definitely gave her he gave her the maximum max. But I wasn't surprised. I mean, I think that I think there was actually a potential degree of premeditation there for what she did to him.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
But
all right.
Well, I think that we did over 3.5 hours here today.
Shit, is
I
it?
think we
Friggin' hell.
Yeah.
No wonder my feet are numb. Now, the next one is supposed to be due in 2 weeks, but both of us can't
correct. Yeah, we're gonna be
do that
because
one, so
of
we'll
the
need to
fact
reschedule.
right, because of the holidays. So we'll have to figure out when that will be, when we can reschedule for.
Yep.
Or if we don't reschedule, it might be following that. Just depending. It's not meaning it's holiday season, so I know it's not going to get easier for things. I don't think because that's all going to kick in. So we're
When
have
was
to
it? The 21st, wasn't it? So it'll be after Christmas.
Yeah, because it would be the 21st, and then the next one would be the 4th of January after that. Yeah, if we were keeping right now, I will say this. Yeah, I should be free for that one, and actually my wife's schedule at work will be changing in February to where she'll get 3 weekends off a month. So we will have a little bit more of an open calendar for things if we wanted to. If we had a situation like that where we have that maybe that off weekend that would fit in for a situation like this, or maybe we can do it we'll figure it out. But I know. Yeah. But with it being the holiday, I mean,
we'll keep you posted anyway.
Yeah, because it's
have no fear.
It's the holiday season. But maybe we'll just do something in maybe in the middle of the week or something if we get it. We'll figure it out.
We sure should will.
So,
well, I enjoyed today. That was
absolutely. I thought it was very enlightening. I intend to
absolutely
definitely look into the Zachariah Anderson case.
And it will be interesting now, having heard that and then watching it and trying to analyze it yourself.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Definitely one to I might even take a week off and just sit and binge watch you. I'm going to sleep for the next 2 days though. I'm telling you that right now. Oh well. All right. Well. Thank you all
right.
for. Oh shit, we've got 68 comments at all. Too busy bloody yabbering. Sorry. Whoops. We're bad.
So, all right. Well, I guess should we?
If we don't see you before, have yourselves an amazing, safe, happy, and Merry Christmas.
Absolutely.
That's bizarre saying it this time of year. Friggin' hell.
I know, isn't it? Let's see how this goes.
For the record, come on in. Stories that make your head spin. to our voice is true. Each one